Chapter 1549 Regulations of the Two Realms. The treasure bottle glowed, and pressed down on Ling Han, filled with frightening destructive power. The regulations of the netherworld were inclined towards death and destruction in the first place. Ling Han raised his hand casually to parry the attack, yet his mind was presently experiencing the regulations of the netherworld. He had a kind of awareness that if he could simultaneously grasp the regulations of both the netherworld and the immortal realm, his battle prowess would be massively increased. This was like yin and yang. Whichever was lacking, it would be incomplete, and once it was completed, the improvement of one's might was definitely not as ordinary as merely doubling it. However, doing it was far from being as simple as saying it. Ling Han discovered that he was forgetting the regulations of the immortal realm. The regulations that were already grasped could actually be forgotten? No, it was not that Ling Han was forgetting them, but rather that the heaven and earth of the netherworld was wearing away at the regulations of the immortal realm he had grasped. Being complete opposites to each other, they were completely incompatible, and could not coexist at all. Thus, if one wanted to stay in the netherworld, his regulations of the immortal realm would have to be erased. However, in the Black Tower, this kind of situation did not appear. Ling Han only realized suddenly that the regulations of the immortal realm he had grasped were being worn away in these last few days. No wonder there had not been any saint that managed to ascend into the celestial realm for so long, that was because the heaven and earth themselves did not allow it. Yet Ling Han still had a sliver of hope. Because he had the Black Tower. The Black Tower could extract the regulations of the two realms for Ling Han to study, but it was not affected by any regulations by itself, or it should be said that it was only affected by the regulations of the Black Tower itself, and that was inside the Black Tower, where it was the most powerful. Thus, it could easily suppress the regulations of the two realms, so they could be studied yet would not be hostile towards each other. In that case, these two sets of regulations actually could coexist? Ling Han sank into deep thought. Bang, bang, bang. In that moment of distraction, he was instantly blasted solidly by the treasure bottle. Then, his astonishing physique showed its might. He was only bounced back and forth like a pellet, but to wound him? It was difficult. Presently, only battle prowess on the level of the consummate level of the Eternal River tier could barely wound Ling Han, and they would have to use regulations as support and slowly refine him. One was dreaming if he wanted to use pure force to penetrate Ling Han's defenses. The current Ling Han only feared a saint. Bei Kai was almost going crazy. He could clearly sense that Ling Han had been distracted. No, it was nothing as simple as being distracted was practically allowing his thoughts to wander, and did not take him seriously at all. It was as if he was comprehending some kind of cultivation technique. Right, that was how arrogant he was being. Just how much were you looking down on me? You actually dared to be so distracted when you were fighting me? Bei Kai roared in fury. This time, he was really angered. It was not as simple as getting revenge on behalf of Zhu Xian anymore. Instead, a strong dislike had risen up in him against Ling Han. Even if he didn't kill the latter, he would at least have to leave behind a deeply ingrained lesson for him. Using his full battle prowess, his furious attacks were all poured out on Ling Han. The battle prowess of a king tier using his full might was really frightening, and those who were watching were all incredibly stunned. Even Zhu Xian was slightly surprised. This battle prowess was really impressive. However, what caused them to be even more speechless was Ling Han. Though he was being blasted back and forth, he still did not have the slightest injury on him. That unperturbed look was practically driving them crazy. Thankfully, I did not start a fight with this filth king, he's a fuck freak. Gou Li mumbled. He barely crawled out of the stone hole. I come from the wild, and not only do I possess the bloodline of 3 primitive beasts, I have bathed in the blood of many beasts since childhood, so my physique is incredibly strong, but compared to him, I might as well be made of tofu. I'm about to go crazy, just what level of defense is that? Someone exclaimed in shock, grabbing their head. Definitely a freakish level. The others shook their heads. Those who had previously thought of robbing Ling Han obediently dismissed this idiotic idea. Yet Ling Han's mind was really wandering away. Since the two types of regulations could coexist, why couldn't they be merged? It was said that one could only break through to the celestial realm by grasping the regulations of the two realms. If so, wouldn't fusing them together be even better? This thought flashed in his mind, and he could no longer control it. He tried to merge the simplest regulations, beginning from the mountain river tier. Cultivators were both cultivating origin power and regulations, so the regulations they could grasp at the mountain river tier were also the simplest and easiest. With Ling Han's level now, he could easily analyze them. But while they were simple, it was a dead end if he wanted to merge the simplest regulations of the two realms. One was black while the other was white, one was water and the other was fire, so how was he supposed to merge them together? They were complete opposites. One represented destruction, and the other represented creation. In their essence, they were completely contrary to each other. If they were fused together, they would definitely be out of place. What might would they still have? Yet Ling Han had stubbornness that would cause him to go down a dead end. How could he give up so easily? He tried out various methods, and continuously allowed his thoughts to fly. This might be a path that had never been walked by others before, so how could it be easily done? After a whole day and night had passed, Bei Kai was starting to become afraid. He had used all the secret techniques that he could use, and had even used a few super powerful moves, the kind that needed a long time to accumulate energy. Ling Han did not react at all, so he naturally did not have to worry about being interrupted. Still, there were no effects at all, and this human in front of him seemed to possess an indestructible body. He was about to cry already. He had never attacked as much as he liked in battle like this, yet he was getting more and more panicky on the inside. Finally, he stopped, looked guiltily at Zhu Xian, and then said, "Fairy Zhu, my skill is not proficient enough, I have disappointed you." No one was jeering at him. It was not that Bei Kai was not strong enough, but rather that Ling Han was really too freakish. They had never seen anyone that could cultivate their physique to this terrifying extent. Meanwhile, Zhu Xian nodded her head, and though the gaze she directed at Ling Han was still filled with hatred, there was also a bit of curiosity in her gaze. Even the daughter of a demon master like herself was emotionally stirred by this kind of physique, and her interest was piqued. Naturally, the look in her eyes had been noticed by a great many people, and they couldn't help but feel resentment secretly. This was too dangerous. If a woman became curious about a man, that meant that it was highly possible that she would fall in love with him. She was the daughter of a demon master, the goddess in all of their hearts. They dreamt of obtaining her hand in marriage even in their sleep. Everyone was filled with so much resentment that they wanted to take a few bites out of Ling Han, but this was only limited to their own thoughts. If they really did take a few bites out of him, that would probably lead to them breaking their teeth off in the process. Inside the Black Tower, Small Tower solidified its form and trembled slightly. This brat actually realized that the regulations of the two realms can be merged. Not bad, not bad. I thought that I would have to point it out to him when he reached the Saint tier. Fine then, I'll give him a helping hand. No matter what, he is still my master. This proud tower said thus. It stimulated the reincarnation tree to burst in might inside Ling Han's body. In the outside world, time passed as usual, but to Ling Han's mind, it was as if he had left his physical body, and entered another world where time was endlessly slowed down. A clear awareness rose up in Ling Han's heart, but he couldn't grasp it no matter how much he tried. It was clearly right in front of him, yet seemed very far from his grasp, making him feel like he was about to go crazy. He was chasing it all the way like that, his divine sense flying away endlessly, and entering the deepest level of meditation. After an unknown period of time passed, his body suddenly trembled. Couldn't he just rip a tear into space and directly reach it? Why did he have to chase from behind so dumbly? With this thought, everything suddenly became clear to him. Who said that creation and destruction could not coexist? Wasn't everything in the world created? But it would eventually be destroyed, and destruction was not eternal either. Sooner or later, a new world would be reborn from destruction. Chapter 1550. Fusing the regulations, the Light of Dao appears again. It could be fused, but it was not a simple merging, and forcibly squeezing them together, but was a loop. Ling Han thought of all the living things of the heaven and earth. Plants grew, and would be eaten by cattle and sheep. For plants, this was destruction, but for cattle and sheep, this was the continuation of life. And livestock would also encounter the attacks of fierce beasts like wolves and tigers. The death of cattle and sheep then represented the continuation of life for wolves and tigers. Life and death, destruction and creation. Ling Han's enlightenment continued. Wang, his body began to glow. Pooh! When those around him saw this, they all spluttered, all of them watching with open-mouthed shock. Light of Dao. This is the fuck Light of Dao. Fuck. They were about to go crazy. Was there such a freak? Being continuously beaten, he actually went on to comprehend Dao. Moreover, he actually succeeded, gained the approval of the heavens, and received a boost from the Light of Dao. This was approval from the heaven and earth. Ordinarily, only those who had created a completely new technique would gain the approval of the heavens, and the Light of Dao would descend on them. This was not something as simple as being approved of, it also had great benefits. The approval of the heaven and earth by itself was a kind of reward. Envy. Jealousy. Zhu Xian's eyes shone even brighter. At this moment, she completely did not think that Ling Han was a chicken thief. How could an extraordinary genius that could gain the approval of the heaven and earth be a pilfering thief? What a joke, it must all have been the fault of that Gou Li. Ling Han was the one who had appeared in the wrong place at the wrong time. No, he should have appeared at the right place at the right time. Otherwise, how could she have met him? Zhu Xian couldn't help but blush rosily, looking very beautiful and alluring. Oh no! When those gathered saw this scene, they were all sighing sorrowfully on the inside. This was obviously the show of a maiden who had fallen in love. Sai, a wonderful goddess, was one just like that. Ling Han sat down in a cross-legged position without being aware of it. The enlightenment of creation and destruction not being opposites to each other was only the beginning, allowing him to know how to fuse the regulations of the two realms, but how exactly it was to be known would still have to be done through practice, and there was much difficulty ahead. But the hardest step was already resolved. Next, it was only a matter of time, and with the reincarnation tree, Ling Han really did not lack time. He suddenly opened his eyes. Xiao, all the Light of Dao actually sank into his eyes, making his eyes seem as if they had endless depth, and one would very easily lose themselves as they gazed into his eyes. That was the Light of Dao. Ling Han's eyes swept over the scene, and he couldn't help but be surprised. He had clearly comprehended Dao for at least a few hundred years, yet why did everything here seem like it was just yesterday? He had not entered into the Black Tower. Hold on. A thought flashed in his mind, and he asked, Small Tower, was it your doing? I was in a good mood, so I helped you a bit. No need to thank me, I am still regretting it. Small Tower immediately retorted proudly. Fuck, this guy really had a tough mouth. It was clearly helping, yet could still infuriate him to the extreme. Ling Han ignored this proud tower, and his eyes focused on Bei Kai instead. With a smile, he said, Apologies, I was distracted just now. Come, let's continue the battle. To hell with continuing the battle. Bei Kai shook his head repeatedly. Ling Han's battle prowess was definitely not weak, but his physique was strong to an irresolvable extent. Fighting with him would only depress him, and cause him to doubt himself. Ling Han ignored his refusal, and rushed out directly, shooting out a fist in a fierce punch. What a joke. Just now, if I had said I did not want to fight, would you have stopped? Since that was the case, why should I be concerned about your opinion? Bei Kai had no choice, and could only fight back. But he had never imagined that Ling Han's battle prowess would actually soar to an inconceivable height all of a sudden. Previously, he could already counter once for every few dozen moves, but what was this now called? He was no match for even a sun-moon tier. No, not just a sun-moon tier, even mountain-river tiers that were in a slightly higher level would be stronger than him. You dare humiliate me thus? Bei Kai was furious. It was one matter for me to be unable to harm you, but you were using such fancy, impractical skills to fight me. Just how far were you looking down on me? You could kill a man, but should not humiliate him, what more when he was a king tier? How dare you? He attacked madly, his fury rising to the point of madness. In truth, Ling Han did not really mean to humiliate him. It was because he was presently channeling the regulations of the two realms, and was in anxious need to test them out in battle so he could stabilize and improve on them further. Because he had merely fused a little bit of the regulations of the mountain river tier, this naturally did not have very much power. Yet Ling Han was pleasantly surprised. After fusing the regulations of the two realms, the power had been increased tenfold. This also meant that once he completely fused the regulations of the two realms, merely that would allow him to be stronger than other king tiers by a whole star of battle prowess. They were all king tiers, so could this difference of a star of battle prowess be overlooked? Moreover, after fusing the regulations of the two realms, this new set of regulations would no longer be worn away by the heaven and earth of the netherworld, because it also contained the regulations of the netherworld, or they would naturally be erasing themselves. Similarly, even if Ling Han returned to the immortal realm, the heaven and earth of the immortal realm would obviously not erase this new set of regulations either. This was the correct path. Ling Han laughed loudly, exploding in a burst of his full battle prowess, which he blasted at Bei Kai. Everyone was struck speechless. If one were to claim that Ling Han had been deliberately pretending, he really did not look like he had been putting on an act. But if one was to claim that he only had that little bit of battle prowess, then all those in the Eternal River tier could directly go and commit suicide. An extreme of strength and weakness appeared in the same person. Furthermore, the two extremes were actually harmonious with each other. This was really incomprehensible and unimaginable. However, Ling Han was continuously becoming stronger. After all, it was only the regulations of the mountain river tier. The level he was at now was too high, he merely had to spend a little more time, and he would be able to fuse these regulations together. Most importantly, with the support of the reincarnation tree, his thoughts were racing on a higher level. The mountain river tier, sun-moon tier, heavenly body tier. Everyone was witnessing with their own eyes how Ling Han's battle prowess was endlessly becoming stronger, which struck them speechless. Ling Han must have been playing with Bei Kai. You fuck just drew out the Light of Dao, so you must have cultivated an inconceivably great mystical power. How could you possibly have been that weak? Only Ling Han himself was aware that he had indeed not been playing around with Bei Kai. Instead, he had treated the latter like a sparring partner. Otherwise, without testing it out in true battle, he could not possibly have improved so quickly. In the end, his battle prowess had once again entered into the Eternal River tier, but after he reached this level, Ling Han could not advance further. That was because he had only grasped so much of the regulations of the netherworld, and no longer had any way to fuse them with the regulations of the immortal realm. Too bad, too bad. Ling Han sighed. He flicked his right index finger, and the limitless 9 deaths formation activated. However, it only released a sliver of its might. Suddenly, Bei Kai shouted in pain, and he was sent flying, a very long wound left behind on his chest. Though he was a king tier, he was no match for 11 limitless 9 deaths formations. Even if it was a sliver of its might, he would still be wounded. If it had been its full might, then he would definitely be killed in an instant. So powerful. Previously, everyone had some dissent, but when they saw this scene, nobody else said anything. The strongest would be kings. Moreover, Ling Han had not provoked Bei Kai. It was Bei Kai who had taken the initiative to challenge him, so he naturally should bear the consequences. What elite would still be even-tempered after being provoked by others? However, even Bei Kai had lost. Was there anyone else here that could match Ling Han? Everyone turned to look at Guang Feichen. Though he was not the only king tier here, firstly, he was in the peak stage of the consummate level of the Eternal River tier, and could be considered the strongest below saints, and secondly, he had been immersed in this cultivation level for an unknown number of years, so his abilities must have been polished to an incredibly powerful extent. Guang Feichen only acted as if he had not seen their looks. He did not have the slightest bit of confidence, so he was naturally unwilling to damage his own reputation. Chapter 1551 Son of a Demon Master. Xiao. Right at this moment, a majestic light suddenly shot over from afar. Peng, a massive sound rang out from the mountain peak. That came from the majestic light crashing onto the mountain. As the light dispersed, a youth was presently standing proudly there. His face was handsome, yet he had a pair of silver cat's ears, which was quite adorable. Some men whose sexual inclinations were not that firm would probably be completely bent at the sight of him. "How dare you?" Immediately, a few people shouted in rebuke. How could he ignore the rules like this? Could it be that just anyone could simply come up here like this? Those that could stand here had all used their abilities to prove that they were worthy. This youth definitely did not have that kind of qualification, because he was only in the heavenly body tier. Get lost. Those few people immediately moved. Ha! A light exclamation, and pang, 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 human figures were sent flying. It was those people that had made a move that were sent flying, like flowers being scattered by a celestial maiden. Another person appeared. This person had a slender, tall figure and a head of silver locks. The eyes were also silver, releasing a bewitching charm. This was a person whose gender was difficult to distinguish. Wearing loose white robes, the figure was not clearly seen, and the facial features were also incredibly neutral. Mo Li. When they saw this person, a considerable number of people exclaimed in trembling voices. If one were to ask whether it was the Overlord Sword Demon Master stronger or the Hysteria Demon Master stronger in the Aurora Galaxy, that was something that had never been concluded, because the two great Demon Masters had sparred for who knew how many rounds, yet it always ended in a tie. But in the Eternal River tier, if Mo Li claimed to be second, there would definitely be no one who dared say he was first. He was a publicly acknowledged young king tier invincible in the Eternal River tier, and he had an above 30% chance of advancing into the Genesis tier. Don't think that 30% chance was too small. In truth, not one person among those in the consummate level of the Eternal River tier dared to say that they had a certain chance of becoming a demon master. Mo Li's superior talent and strong abilities were evidently extraordinary. And he also had another identity, the personal disciple of the Hysteria Demon Master. It was not strange for him to come here. After a few more days, the Overlord Sword Demon Master would be sparring with the Hysteria Demon Master. As the personal disciple of the latter, wasn't it very normal for him to come along? Moreover, observing the battle between Demon Masters was also greatly beneficial for his breaking through to the Genesis tier. Ling Han's eyes tensed. This Mo Li made him feel a very strong pressure. He was definitely not weaker than big shots like Ren Feiyun and Kai Miao. In fact, it was even possible that he was slightly stronger than them. But what he was more curious about was whether this Mo Li was male or female. This was probably a matter that a great many people were curious about because Li had never clearly confirmed his or her gender. The cat-eared youth walked over, and smiled at Li. Then, he looked at Zhu Xian and said, "So you are the Overlord Sword Demon Master's daughter, Zhu Xian?" Zhu Xian glanced at Li, and then nodded, and answered, "That's right, who are you?" "My name is Wu Ju, and my father is the Hysteria Demon Master," the cat-eared youth replied. Everyone suddenly gave an "oh." No wonder Li had moved, this was his junior brother. Zhu Xian wrinkled her nose in a frown. She very much disliked the arrogance of this youth. "The reason why I have come is to see how my betrothed looks like. If she looks ugly, I will definitely not marry her." Wu Ju looked Zhu Xian over from top to bottom. "Looks okay, but seems like the waist is a little wide." Those last words were directed to Li. Li's expression was wooden, and he answered, "It's not her waist that is wide, but her behind is too small, which is why her waist has lost its curve." His voice was also extremely neutral, and one was still unable to distinguish his gender from his voice. "Pooh!" A great many people spluttered in laughter. Though this Li's behavior was cold, his words were really enough to cause someone to die in fury. Zhu Xian's pretty face was already bright red in embarrassment. Her right hand tightly gripped her sword. She wanted to commit murder. Wu Ju meanwhile nodded his head, and said, "I see." Li was very sure. "The two of you, have you said enough?" Zhu Xian squeezed out through gritted teeth, a vein popping on her hand that was gripping tightly onto her sword. "Barely adequate." Wu Ju's mouth twitched, and then said, "Then you. I will just tolerate recognizing you as my betrothed." Absolute nonsense. Zhu Xian took a look at Ling Han, and as if fearing that he would misunderstand, she hurriedly exclaimed, "Who is your betrothed here?" "Your father made a bet and lost to my father, and the stake was you," Wu Ju said. He spread out his hands, and sighed. "Sigh, really, I am so free and happy being on my own, so why did he have to find a betrothed for me?" "Lost a bet?" Zhu Xian's heart clenched, and she exclaimed, "Stop babbling nonsense, how could my father possibly lose to Lord Hysteria?" Li interrupted, and said, "The wager hasn't begun yet. It will only be decided tomorrow when the two lords spar." Zhu Xian's heart suddenly calmed down. The two demon masters had to be using the battle's victor to decide the matrimony between her and Wu Ju, but obviously her father could not possibly lose. She humphed, and proudly declared, "In your dreams." Yet Li said, "Junior sister Zhu, Lord Overlord Sword wagered that he could defeat my master this time, if not, he would betroth junior sister Zhu to my junior brother." Obviously, this is already a decided matter. Clearly, it was practically an impossible feat for Overlord Sword Demon Master to defeat Hysteria Demon Master, but it was also the same for the latter to defeat the former. Zhu Xian suddenly paled. Her father was really too self-confident this time round, he was so confident that he was going to drag her into the bargain. Wu Ju gave a yawn, and looked towards Ling Han. Previously, he had seen Zhu Xian casting a few looks at Ling Han. At first, he did not have to be concerned about that, but who asked this girl to have become his betrothed? He involuntarily stared at Ling Han, and after studying him for a while, he said, "You look a little familiar." Ling Han paused. He had never come to the netherworld, so how could he possibly meet the son of a demon master? He smiled calmly, and said, "When have we met before?" It is this smile, especially asking to be beaten. Especially detestable. I definitely have seen this smile before. Wu Ju pointed at Ling Han, looking as if someone had stepped on his tail. A muscle involuntarily twitched in Ling Han's cheek. Being able to say such words, he clearly was very familiar with him. Strange, he really had never seen this youth before. How did he cause the latter to be fuming with rage like this? Right, he had eaten one of the chickens of a demon master's daughter, and now had become the target of the son of another demon master. Was he really that unfortunate? It's you. It's you. Wu Ju suddenly leaped up, and took a quick step forwards, his fist crashing down on Ling Han. So inexplicable. Ling Han gave a light shove, and swept Wu Ju backwards. Smiling, he said, "Kid, you are no match for me. Your senior brother would be a better match." Wu Ju had been too excited, so he had rushed forwards in a moment of impulse. Moreover, with Li standing behind him, he was naturally unafraid. He hurriedly turned around, and declared, "Li, get revenge for me." "What did he do to you?" Li asked calmly, having no apparent ire. Wu Ju's face suddenly flushed, looking completely like a little wife that had been terribly bullied, yet he was reluctant to say anything. It was Ling Han who became anxious instead, and he exclaimed, Hey, can't you speak nicely? This look of yours would make others misunderstand that I did something to you." Chapter 1552. Are you male or female? Yet Wu Ju simply ignored him, and exclaimed, Li, get revenge for me, help me get revenge. He was acting like a spoiled child. The sight caused Zhu Xian even more displeasure. This guy was practically just a kid, so how could he possibly become her husband? Li nodded, and replied, "All right." Li was going to make a move. Everyone couldn't help but be curious and excited. How many years had it been? Li was famous like the brightest star in the skies. Since a long time ago, there was already no one that dared to challenge him, yet Ling Han previously had also displayed a frightening physique. Would he be able to endure Li's attacks? They were all curious. "I will make 3 moves, Li said to Ling Han, his expression calm. Ling Han smiled, and said, "No way, we have no animosity between the two of us, and we're about to fight a life-and-death battle already?" A great many people immediately shook their heads. That was Li, and he would be the only one beating others to death who would dare oppose him? Long ago, millions of years ago, there already existed this kind of legend. As long as one could take a single move from Li, then he would be capable of doing as he liked among the eternal river tiers. Taking 3 moves practically would qualify one to rule over the eternal river tier. If it was 10 moves, then one would be a big shot among big shots. 3 moves? You couldn't. Li was neither angered or irritated, and again emphasized, 3 moves. Fine then, I'll play with you. Ling Han thought for a moment, his interest in gossip suddenly blazing. Involuntarily, he said, "Then, let's make a wager. If I can't take 3 moves from you, whether you want to beat me or kill me, I will have no disagreement. However, if I can take 3 moves, it will naturally be your loss. You'll have to tell me whether you are male or female." Gasp! Hearing that Ling Han actually still dared to bargain, everyone inhaled sharply, seeming to be incredibly stunned. That was Li, the top elite of the Eternal River tier. If he was willing to confirm his gender, what need was there for you to ask? Obviously, he was not. And you actually went to touch on his weakness, wasn't that just courting death? Li still had a wooden expression, his figure rising into the skies. "Come fight me. Filth King Ling, rest assured and go. If you die, Brother Li will collect your corpse." Gou Li was already capable of movement. With a strong physique, his speed of recovery was considerably astonishing. Scram! Ling Han almost shot out a foot to kick him. He rose into the air, and stood on the same level as Li, facing him directly. The first move. Li stretched out his right hand, and pressed it towards Ling Han. The light of fighting spirits suddenly sparked in Ling Han's eyes. This was a very strong opponent, and was stronger than even such big shots like Ren Feiyun. It was highly possible that he was a rank 3 king tier. This kind of king tier was really too rare, and that was why he naturally could be praised as a grand figure in this galaxy. In the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy, which of the disciples were not well-known figures in their own respective areas? They were existences that were ranked in the top 10, at the very least. Then let's test out the battle prowess of the top king tier in the netherworld. Ling Han channeled the limitless 9 Deaths formation. Boom, his whole person suddenly exploded with a boundless violent chi. The limitless 9 Deaths formation was a killing formation in the first place, and ranked as the top among level 16 formations. 11 killing formations activating at the same time, what kind of concept was that? Ling Han moved, but did not use their full power. Instead, he only showed 30% of their might. However, this was already incredibly frightening. When he shot out his fist, a boundless murderous aura surged forth, and he was like the king of the underworld that had climbed out of hell, intent on slaughtering everything. Everyone couldn't help but be greatly shocked. This transformation was really too fast. Previously, though Ling Han's physique was freakishly strong, his battle prowess was not very strong, and he gave off an amusing vibe. But presently, it was as if he was a completely different person. That dense killing intent was practically enough to freeze one solid. Only Bei Kai had some awareness of it. When he had been sent flying by Ling Han's final blow, he had felt this kind of dense killing intent, which almost froze his blood into clotting. Now, his body involuntarily shivered with lingering fear. That expression on Mo Li's face that seemed like it would not change for 10,000 years also changed. Though it was only a bare twitch of his lips, that was a real change. With a shout, boom, his whole head of silver locks flew behind him, a silvery river appearing in midair, covered densely with great stars. Gods! Someone swept an eye over it, and involuntarily paled in shock. Mo Li's stars have actually exceeded 1 million. What? The others were also stunned speechless. Attaining as many as 1 million stars meant that he had reached the peak stage of the Eternal River tier, and could attempt breaking through to the Genesis tier. However, Genesis tier was difficult to reach. Some freakish king tiers could continue pushing forward in the Eternal River tier, and break the limit of 1 million stars. This could allow them to continue increasing their power. However, their grasp of the regulations of the heaven and earth would stagnate, and they ultimately could not be called saints. But how could it possibly be easy to break through the number of 1 million stars? As expected of Mo Li, he was too strong. But what was more inconceivable was that Mo Li actually channeled the silvery river. Just what kind of terrifying pressure had he encountered here? In other words, just how strong was Ling Han to actually manage to force Mo Li to this extent? Ling Han shot out his fist violently, as if it was capable of causing the skies to collapse and leveling the underworld. Break! Mo Li exclaimed lightly, brandishing his palm to meet Ling Han's blow. Silvery light danced, similarly raising into the skies. Pang! The two of them exchanged a blow, and both were sent flying backwards. Mo Li's face that had been astonishingly pale became even slightly paler in an inconceivable manner, yet Ling Han was completely indifferent. His physique was too strong, what effect could a mere rebound have on him? Immediately, he halted his retreat. Then, recomposing himself, he charged out at Mo Li again. This time, he had increased the might of the limitless 9 Deaths formation to 70%. Mo Li gritted his teeth, and boldly stepped forwards. Pang! The two of them once again bounced back. Mo Li was really very strong, and was not at a disadvantage at all, though his face became slightly paler again. Ling Han made a comeback. This time, he held nothing back. He channeled all 11 killing formations, blasting them madly at Mo Li. Pang! 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 Two great king tiers fighting caused even the skies to darken, and only an endless thunder was echoing in the area. Mo Li was really very powerful, he actually could hold up against 11 limitless 9 deaths formations. However, thinking about it seriously, this was normal. His stars had already exceeded 1 million, and theoretically, he could be claimed to be in the pinnacle level of the Eternal River tier, becoming a demon in a different sense of the word. Having the power of a demon master, yet his grasp of regulations was slightly weaker. But Mo Li's strength was known to all. He was publicly acknowledged as the top in the Eternal River tier, yet Ling Han actually managed to fight him to a tie. No, he was in fact taking the initiative to attack, and suppressing Mo Li in battle. This was really something that was difficult to accept. Wasn't it Mo Li who said that he would let Ling Han have an allowance of 3 moves? Why were the tables now turned? It seemed like it was Ling Han that was testing Mo Li. Ling Han had long forgotten their agreement of 3 moves. He was already excited by battle, and cared about nothing else. Fight, fight, fight. This battle caused even the sun and moon to pale. Neither of the 2 great king tiers had a habit of admitting defeat. However, when it was the second day, they both stopped. That was because a more frightening shock wave was coming from the galaxy. The 2 demon masters had already begun their spar. Ling Han stared at the galaxy. The 2 demon masters were really too dazzling. Even if there was a distance of millions and millions of galaxies between them, they could still be clearly seen. You have won the wager. Mo Li was expressionless. Then, he communicated through divine sense, and succinctly spoke out a word. Ling Han's expression involuntarily became strange. Chapter 1553 Gou Li's regard. Mo Li, this person with a wooden face, was actually female. She did not have the slightest bit of femininity. However, on the other hand, she did not have any bit of masculinity, either. If she said she was male, Ling Han would definitely think that she was lacking manliness, and was too effeminate. No way. Wu Ju jumped up, pointed at Ling Han, and exclaimed, "How could you possibly be this strong? Previously, you had only just broken through to the heavenly body tier, so how could you have become this strong in just over 100 years? Ling Han was shocked. You saw me over 100 years ago? Why don't I have the slightest recollection of you? Wu Ju humphed, yet was unwilling to speak of the situation at the time. Ling Han thought for a moment. That should have been on Cloud Apex Planet because Joint Peace Planet did not have the 2-realm battlefield. Otherwise, if he had met a being of the Netherworld at some other place, he would definitely have a very deep impression of it. However, there were too many beings of the Netherworld at the 2-realm battlefield, so how could he possibly remember whom he had met before? Forget it, he had even killed a saint already, so what need was there for him to be at such a loss about the son of a demon master? With this thought, Ling Han also let the matter go, and no longer continued to think of where he had once met Wu Ju. Furthermore, though Wu Ju had a big beef with him, it was obviously not the kind of overflowing hatred that wanted him to be dead. Otherwise, he only had to expose the fact that Ling Han was a cultivator from the immortal realm. The words of the son of a demon master naturally had weight, and that would definitely bring massive trouble for Ling Han. The 2 demon masters fought fiercely. This was the battle of the strongest of the Netherworld and immortal realms, and it continued until the skies darkened. Though Mo Li already possessed the power of the Genesis tier, her battle prowess was far from that level, and she could not be mentioned on equal terms with them at all. This battle did not continue for too long. After merely 10 days, the 2 demon masters stopped. It was another tie. However, the Overlord Sword Demon Master had lost his wager. He had bet on winning this battle. Zhu Xian left in a rush. She wanted to find her old man. Just fight if you wanted, but why was it that she became the stake in a bet between the 2 of them? If he was so intent on marriage, then he could go ahead and get married himself. Ling Han also planned to slip away quietly. He had gained a lot this time, and planned to enter into seclusion as soon as he returned. Firstly, he had to directly upgrade the Divine Demon Sword to Saint Tier, and secondly, he had to comprehend the regulations of the Netherworld so that his grasp would catch up with his cultivation level. Then, he would once again merge the regulations of the two realms, and his battle prowess would increase to another level. Though using himself as a formation would allow him to have battle prowess that far exceeded his cultivation level, this was not a path that he wished to take. The path that he was determined to walk on was to strengthen himself. Hey, don't go. Yet Wu Ju hailed him down. He was obviously not all that interested in his betrothed, and did not stop Zhu Xian from leaving at all. However, he had great interest in Ling Han. What is it? Ling Han asked with a smile. I want to get revenge. Wu Ju raised his head high, appearing to be very infuriated. Just what exactly did I do to you? Ling Han was speechless. Had he really bullied this little boy before? You come with me, and when my abilities catch up to you, I will personally defeat you. Wu Ju exclaimed very foolishly and naively. Ling Han laughed loudly, and pressed a hand on his head. Young man, you have to be down to earth in life. Don't think of unrealistic things. Wu Ju shouted in anger, just how much were you looking down on me? Waving both his arms, he wanted to hit Ling Han, but with Ling Han pressing down on his head, this was completely wasted effort. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't touch Ling Han at all. Mo Li, tell me, will I be able to defeat him in future? He asked for Mo Li's help. Mo Li thought the matter over seriously, and answered, impossible. Wu Ju was stunned, and then felt so aggrieved he almost broke into tears. Are you really on my side? Why are you siding with an outsider? This is the truth, Mo Li emphasized again. That was what her personality was like. Wu Ju was struck speechless. Only after a while did he say, I don't believe it, I definitely want to defeat this guy. Ling Han, do you dare to come with me? He was spurring him on. Ling Han thought for a moment, and then replied, fine. Firstly, he did not have any kind of goal in the Netherworld, and secondly, Mo Li was a very good opponent, and could be used to temper him. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Wu Ju immediately became excited again. Filth King Ling, let's meet again in future. Gou Li said, a strange grin on his face. Ling Han involuntarily shivered. A savage man that was 7 feet tall actually wore that kind of smile, there was definitely something off. Gou Li waved his hand and marched off. He arrived at a spot where there was no one else, and drew out a conch-like item. It was made of jade and was very beautifully crafted, but he had not taken it out to play with it. Instead, he inserted his origin power into it with a very serious expression, and suddenly, multiple formation patterns glowed. A voice was actually heard from the conch. Greetings, Ninth Elder. Gou Li called out respectfully first, and then said, I have found a very impressive sapling. How impressive? The other questioned. If I have not seen wrongly, this person is already able to merge the regulations of the two realms, Gou Li answered solemnly. What? The other was stunned. Which demon master is it? In reply to Ninth Elder, it is not a demon master, but rather an eternal river tier, Gou Li replied. There was suddenly no reply from the other side. Only after a long while did the other side ask, are you sure that he has really merged the regulations of the two realms? I am 90% sure. Gou Li did not confirm it completely. If that is the case, then I will personally come. Such a sapling can be of use for our alliance, the other side said. Keep your eye on that person, and you must definitely not lose track of him. Understood. However, Wu Ju was not in a rush to return. It was his first time visiting Cold Cloud's planet, so he wanted to travel around. Ling Han thus made a deal with him. They would meet at the foot of the Black Jade Mountains, and then set off together to see Space Planet. That was the planet where the Hysteria Demon Master resided. Taking this opening, Ling Han finally managed to enter into the Black Tower, and upgrade the Divine Demon Sword. After swallowing the final few pieces of level 13 godly metal, the Divine Demon Sword experienced a qualitative change and broke through to level 14. And he did not just stop there. Ling Han had a great amount of level 14 godly metal in his possession, and easily sent the Divine Demon Sword up to level 15, and then on to level 16. When it had swallowed enough level 16 godly metal, indescribable divine patterns drifted on this divine sword. They definitely had been inscribed on the sword by Ling Han. This was saintly patterns. Theoretically, the Divine Demon Sword is a celestial tool, so what should be drifting on it should be celestial patterns. Then, these perhaps may not be the inscribed patterns of the Divine Demon Sword itself, but rather something that appeared due to it having swallowed innumerable god tool, thus forming saintly patterns, Ling Han surmised. Presently, the Divine Demon Sword was also undergoing an intense transformation, entering into Sang tier. This breach was too wide. Even if it was the Divine Demon Sword, it seemed like it had to undergo a very long process. He observed closely, perhaps this would be beneficial for him. However, he really could not understand. A saint-level item could not be comprehended at all if his cultivation level was inadequate. Ling Han watched for a while, and then gave up. He'd just have to wait and see when he reached the consummate level of the Eternal River tier. As for now, there was no point in biting off more than he could chew. He should first ensure that his grasp of the regulations of the netherworld caught up. He arrived at the roots of the reincarnation tree. The Empress and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden just happened to have completed their cultivation, and listened to him relate what had previously happened. The Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden was extremely intrigued regarding Emoli, and wanted to see how hard it was to distinguish her gender. Just in time, and Ling Han explained about how the regulations of the netherworld and immortal realm could be merged to the two women. If they wanted to enter into the celestial realm, this was a step that they probably had to take. Chapter 1554 So it, S.U. The two women were greatly inspired. The Empress immediately formed her 9 doppelgangers. They all sat down cross-legged, and were boosted by the reincarnation tree. However, this could only accommodate 10 people, so the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden had no means to cultivate. Thus, she decisively exited the Black Tower, and enjoyed some alone time with Ling Han. In any case, she had also grasped some regulations of the netherworld. From the surface, there was no difference between her and any ordinary being of the netherworld. On the 8th day, the Divine Demon Sword released a great tremor from within the Black Tower. It had finally advanced into the Saint tier. Ling Han couldn't help but feel rueful. Why couldn't his cultivation be as fast as that? If not, then it would also be good if the Empress could advance into the Saint tier sooner. But Ling Han was still very pleased. This time, the Divine Demon Sword's advancement was really too amazing. It had directly skipped over the 4 levels of the Eternal River tier, and became a saint tool. He drew out the Divine Sword, and saw that the sword's blade was exuding a gentle luster like the finest jade. Furthermore, there was about it a supreme air that vaguely could suppress all existence. This was saintly might. He drew on it lightly, and the divine patterns on the Divine Demon Sword immediately glowed one after another. However, a frightening absorbing energy was madly sucking on his origin power, which was comparable to him forcibly channeling the indestructible heaven scroll to take on the attack of a saint head-on. It was only a couple of pulls, and his legs were already trembling with weakness. To activate a saint tool, this kind of consumption was too great. In truth, Ling Han had nurtured and created this saint tool with his own hands, so he should have been able to easily activate it without much effort, but don't forget that he was presently only in the Eternal River tier, and the martial intent that he had integrated had not attained saint tier. Thus, the fact that the Divine Demon Sword could display saintly might was in truth due to the fact that it had swallowed countless godly metal, and had therefore naturally formed saintly patterns. This had nothing to do with Ling Han. Hence, to activate this kind of saintly might, Ling Han would have to pay a very great price. I'll probably be able to attack 2 or 3 times only, Ling Han estimated. And this was because the divine demon sword was a treasured tool that he had been nurturing all this while. If it was another person, how could they possibly activate a saint tool when they were only in the eternal river tier? They wouldn't be able to do it even if they were sucked dry. This would mean having to choose, he mumbled. Origin power was limited. He could focus it on either attack or defense, and it was impossible to cover both areas. We'll see what the situation is. If there is enough distance, I could attack once then immediately duck back into the Black Tower, or deliver a sudden attack the moment I exit the Black Tower. If I am being targeted by a saint, I will have to use the indestructible heaven scroll to save myself. Another 2 days passed, and the time to meet with Wu Ju had already arrived. Thus, Ling Han set out with the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. They had just arrived, and heard Wu Ju angrily exclaim, "You're late, a whole 30 minutes late." He was very dissatisfied with Ling Han. He jumped out, and was just about to point at Ling Han in rebuke when he saw the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. His eyes involuntarily lit up, and he spread out his arms, planning to run over to embrace her. "Hey, hey, hey, you're not a 3-year-old toddler." Ling Han smacked the brat away. If it weren't for the fact that he did not have any perverted expression on his face, he would not have just smacked him away. Meanwhile, the heavenly phoenix divine maiden's expression became one of disgust. This youth was a little too enthusiastic, wasn't he? "Sister, it's me." Wu Ju hurriedly called out, wearing an aggrieved expression. "Who are you?" The heavenly phoenix divine maiden turned to look at Ling Han, and Ling Han shrugged. This brat seemed like he really knew them, and seemed to hate Ling Han very much, but he stuck close to the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. "We've met at the two-realm battlefield," Wu Ju continued. Ling Han and the heavenly phoenix divine maiden shook their heads. They had no memory of meeting at all. Wu Ju's face flushed, and he finally exclaimed, "I was that kitten." "Huh?" Ling Han immediately had some recollection. At the time, he had picked up a small beast, and drew the invasion of the armies of the Netherworld in the end. The situation only calmed when he delivered the small beast back to the Netherworld. He had deduced that this small beast was definitely no simple character. As it turned out, it was the son of a demon master. Hold on, going by that line of thought, the Hysteria demon master or this brat's mother should have the bloodline of a demonic beast, and that was why he had taken the form of a silver kitten when he was young. He only assumed human form he advanced into immortal level. Ling Han laughed loudly, and exclaimed, "So it was you. TSK, now that you've met your savior, come and offer your thanks. You weren't the one who saved me." Wu Ju mumbled, and then he began to fawn. "Sister, I have the primordial divine fluid, and the bright king fruit, and also clear spirit condensed milk. I'll give them all to you." This guy, if Zhu Xian saw how this betrothed of hers actually fawned on another woman like this, she would probably charge over and slash him in two, and then tear him into pieces. Finally, she would crush his bones into dust which she would scatter into the sea. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden shook her head with a smile. The small beast had been so cute at the time, but now he had become a bottom. Sigh, she had completely lost all interest. It would be better for her to have her own child with Ling Han. "This is good stuff, why would you refuse it?" Ling Han stretched out his hand. "Hand it over." "Pay." Wu Ju's attitude towards Ling Han was completely different, he despised him very much. "It's not for you, don't come close to me. Let's go, don't make master have to wait." Mo Li spoke up, her tone neutral and completely absent of emotion. Wu Ju was a little scared of Mo Li. When she spoke up, he immediately behaved himself, just like a little brother that was used to being reprimanded by his elder sister. They set off. The Hysteria Demon Master was waiting on a mountain. He was a broad-shouldered man. He swept an eye over Ling Han and the heavenly phoenix divine maiden, and then focused his eyes on Ling Han, his eyes widening slightly. He should have seen through to the fact that there were 11 killing formations in Ling Han's body, which brought even him, a demon master, some amount of surprise. But this kind of emotion was only slightly shown. For a demon master, all existence below Genesis tier were ants. Of course, if he had had the chance to chat with Hu Feng, he would not have underestimated Ling Han to this extent. Young man, you saved Zhu'er over a century ago, and I have yet to repay the favor. The Hysteria Demon Master smiled. He did not have the airs of a saintly material, and was extremely bold and unconstrained. What do you want? True origin stones? Divine fruit? Divine pill? Saintly material? Whatever you say, I will fulfill your wish. Ling Han smiled, being neither servile nor overbearing, and replied, Senior, I helped out previously only because I had no wish to see a war erupt between the netherworld and the immortal realm, and do not have any unreasonable request. Thus, you need not take this to heart, Senior. The Hysteria Demon Master paused, and then laughed loudly. What a good youth. Your ambitions are quite far, and you have your own pride. Wu Ju mumbled something, but because his voice was very soft, no one heard what he said. What Ling Han needed now was saintly medicine, and it was not just one or two, but a great amount. However, it was already good enough if a demon master could give him one or two, how could he possibly give him a large amount? Thus, he might as well just leave the favor there. Who knew? It might be used for some other purpose in future. The Hysteria Demon Master waved his hand, and gathered all four of them together. A golden pathway appeared beneath his feet, and it surged towards the galaxy. As he walked, endless galaxies rapidly flashed past behind him. Yet even so, he still walked for over a day before finally arriving at Sea Space Planet. This was on the other end from Cold Cloud's planet. Otherwise, it would not have caused a demon master to walk for so long to reach. Chaotic Demon Palace. Ling Han looked at the colossal mass of buildings ahead of them. Rather than calling this a palace, it would be more appropriate to call it a city. Master. A considerable number of people saw the golden pathway stretch over, and came out to greet them. It's you, a voice shouted by Ling Han's ear. Ling Han turned to look, and couldn't help but feel rueful. It was really a very small world. It was actually Chi Huangji. Chapter 1555 Battling Chi Huangji again. Chi Huangji, a prodigy of the netherworld. He was indeed an incredibly powerful king tier, and in a battle of equals, he was in fact capable of suppressing the North Emperor and Stone Emperor. However, when they had been at the Mountain River Forest, Chi Huangji had still lost to Ling Han in the end. Though his gains were not any less because of it, it had still left an ugly mark on his experience. He had brooded on it all this while, but with the immortal realm and netherworld being far apart from each other, he naturally could not possibly seek out Ling Han again for another battle, and erase this humiliation. At the time, Wu Ju had been lost, and the chaotic demon palace had mobilized a great amount of manpower to launch a search for him. Later, Wu Ju had been found, and some promising saplings had also been brought back. Chi Huangji was among those that had been brought back. He was indeed a prodigy. In merely slightly over a century, he had already advanced into the Eternal River tier, and had even reached the medium extreme. Even in the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy, this kind of natural talent was one of the very best. Chi Huangji had never imagined that he would actually meet Ling Han in this place. Yo, it's been a long time. Ling Han waved at Chi Huangji, and was not concerned that the secret of him being from the immortal realm would be leaked out. The Hysteria Demon Master clearly knew who he was, yet he did not say anything. Then, as long as this demon master did not make a move, what need was there for him to take others to heart? Chi Huangji clenched his teeth. He had never thought that Ling Han would be so outrageously bold to actually run into the netherworld. Furthermore, he actually managed to perfectly fit into the netherworld. If he had not seen him with his own eyes, even if others pointed at Ling Han and exclaimed that he was a spy from the immortal realm, he would not have believed it. He wanted very much to leap over and fight Ling Han to his heart's content, but when he saw the Hysteria Demon Master standing at the side, he hurriedly exclaimed, "Master, this person is from the immortal realm, and has hidden his identity with some unknown means." What? Hearing these words, those who had come out to receive them all paled in shock. This was actually a spy from the immortal realm? Ling Han coughed, and said, "Chi Huangji, you can eat whatever you like, but you can't say whatever you like. Just look at me, what part of me looks like someone from the immortal realm? Humph, don't forget, we have met before at the two-realm battlefield over 100 years ago, and have even fought. Don't tell me that I can't even distinguish whether you are from the immortal realm or netherworld." Chi Huangji sneered. Ling Han gave an "Oh. Are you talking about the time that you lost to me?" Everyone heard this, and once again erupted in uproar. Chi Huangji actually lost? No way, though this junior brother was a newcomer, his talent was indeed shocking. He had been claimed to be a second Imoli, and even if he couldn't become a demon master in the future, it was highly possible that he could cultivate to the pinnacle level of the Eternal River tier, and become a demon master in another sense of the word. Surely Ling Han's cultivation level had been higher at the time, and he had won on the basis of his advantage in cultivation level. That had to be it. Chi Huangji looked both humiliated and angry, and said, "That was because my cultivation level had been forcibly reduced to the mountain river tier. If I could use my full abilities, I would be able to suppress you with a single finger." Everyone couldn't help but wear strange expressions. Hearing the tone that Chi Huangji had said these words in, it clearly was he that had had the advantage in cultivation level at the time. Fuck, just who exactly was this young man? That was really too amazing, wasn't it? Ling Han roared with laughter, and said, "Then, let's have a spar." Yet Chi Huangji humphed coldly. "Don't think of changing the topic. You are clearly of the immortal realm, yet enter into our netherworld. What are you planning?" The Hysteria Demon Master finally spoke up. "Since he has entered into our netherworld, and gained the approval of the regulations of our netherworld, Ling Han is a man of our netherworld. Never speak of this topic again." This was the will of a demon master. Once the words were out, the whole world would obey. "Yes, Master. Yes, Lord Demon Master." Everyone all obeyed seriously. Though Chi Huangji was defiant, he could only nod obediently. However, the demon master merely said that there should not be any bother about Ling Han's previous identity, but did not say that they could not fight him. "Ling Han, then let's fight again." Chi Huangji leaped out. He had gained much of the Hysteria Demon Master's fondness and regard. Thus, he could do some matters that other disciples did not dare, such as issue a challenge right in front of the Demon Master. This time, the Demon Master did not stop them. He merely smiled at Ling Han, and said, "Have a fair battle." Ling Han knew what he meant. If he used his full effort, with 11 killing formations activating at the same time, even Mo Li would be having a headache, so what more Chi Huangji? Thus, in a fair battle, the killing formations naturally could not be used. This was in fact very unfair. Being able to inscribe the killing formations was because Ling Han had cultivated the indestructible heaven scroll, and his physique was strong enough. The ability had not just come out of nowhere. However, Ling Han did not mind. In a battle of equals, he was still incapable of winning? That has got to be a joke. "Fine, we'll have a fair battle," Ling Han said, smiling. "Then let's go up into the skies for a battle." Chi Huangji took the lead in charging up into the skies. Ling Han lazily floated up into the skies as well. In a battle of equals, he did not even take seriously rank 3 king tiers, unless they had come from the Forbidden Lands, and cultivated celestial techniques. Otherwise, they would not be capable of matching him at all. However, if it really came to that, he would activate the 11 killing formations, and would still be able to deal with everything. Having cultivated the highest level of cultivation technique like the indestructible Heaven Scroll, would he still be unable to sweep aside all opposition in the same cultivation level? What a joke! Sister, have some melon seeds. When Wu Ju saw that the irksome presence had left, he hurriedly came over to curry favor, and those who were watching his actions were completely dumbfounded. They had never seen their little master so eagerly trying to attract someone's affection. Even the demon master's lips were twitching. This guy had never acted so filial even to him. Everyone turned to look at the heavenly phoenix divine maiden, and felt that though this woman was very beautiful, she was not so beautiful that she could completely enchant and captivate both the mind and spirit. At least there was definitely one or two that could match her in looks in this galaxy, so how was it that she had caused their little master to act like a completely different person? Yet they did not know that when Wu Ju was still a child, it was the heavenly phoenix divine maiden who had taken great care of him, so the impression she left on him was naturally incomparably deep. How could just any woman replace her in his heart? In the skies, Chi Huangji glared coldly at Ling Han, his expression solemn. This opponent that he had once been able to crush to death with a single hand had actually caught up with him in cultivation level. This was really inconceivable. He had gained the careful guidance of a demon master, and added with the fact that his own good fortune was so unnatural that he could simply pick up any natural treasures wherever he went, it was unimaginable that Ling Han actually managed to catch up to him in cultivation level. Multiple demonic patterns lit up on Chi Huangji's arms. He had absolute confidence that he needed not fear anyone and could easily suppress any opponent in a battle of equals. With a sudden roar, he charged out to attack Ling Han. Ling Han was very casual. Even if he did not use the killing formations, merely the strength of his defense was not something that Chi Huangji could penetrate. Even if he did not resist, and allowed Chi Huangji to melt him down through his power of regulations, that would need at least a good few days to actually be capable of causing him some injury. He raised his hand, and multiple patterns similarly lit up. What was strange was that they were not divine patterns, and were not demonic patterns either. Instead, they seemed to be a combination of both, yet in terms of level, they seemed to be higher. The Hysteria Demon Master couldn't help but be slightly surprised. The might of such patterns would naturally collapse at the first blow in his eyes, but if he was also pulled down to the Eternal River tier, then the demonic patterns he showed would still be unable to match them. This brat was very strange. Chapter 1556 Comprehension catches up. Chi Huangji also saw this. His brow wrinkled in a slight frown, but due to the strong self-confidence he had, he rushed forwards without any fear, and began his attack. Previously, he had thought he would never have the chance to erase this humiliation. He had not imagined that Ling Han would actually enter into the netherworld. He definitely could not miss this opportunity. He delivered a punch. Demonic patterns glowed like a demonic lotus that could sever the skies. This was the demonic lotus seal, a technique that had been invented by the Hysteria Demon Master. Ling Han greeted the attack with his own fist. In a battle of equals, he had never shrunk back. Pang! A loud sound rang out, and both Chi Huangji and Ling Han were sent back flying a few hundred meters by the impact. Chi Huangji immediately showed a confident expression. There was not much of a gap between the two of them in terms of power. They were both rank 3 king tiers, and in terms of regulations, he was obviously superior in level. The highest level of regulations that Ling Han could draw on was the low extreme at most. However, the latter's physique was really too strong. He took on the aftermath head-on, and did not sustain even the slightest injury. This freakish guy, how could he have such a frightening physique? Chi Huangji gritted his teeth. Previously, he had already lost once, and now he still had to face this huge gulf between them, which made him feel a depression he could not describe. Ling Han shook his head. After merging the regulations of the two realms, his battle prowess of the same level had been strengthened further by at least another star, but his grasp of the regulations of the netherworld had not caught up. This meant that he was equal to being in the low extreme of the Eternal River tier, and was naturally not a match for an opponent in the medium extreme. This was not something that could be improved in a short while, so he had no wish to fight Chi Huangji for a long time, and improve his grasp of the regulations of the netherworld in battle. He wanted to end the battle quickly. Senior brother Chi, go! Wu Ju was cheering him on from below. He wanted nothing more than for Ling Han to lose horribly in front of the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. The Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden looked at him in displeasure, and the little bottom immediately lowered his head guiltily. He could only secretly cheer Chi Huangji on. The demonic lotus blooms, and all is killed. Chi Huangji shot out both fists, and formed a massive lotus flower seal, which pressed down on Ling Han, intending to suppress him by force. Ling Han smiled calmly, and channeled the tide of the ages with a casual wave of his hand. Decay! 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 When the demonic lotus seal arrived in front of Ling Han, it had already decayed so much that nothing was left, so all its might was naturally lost. The Tide of the Ages, a celestial technique. Celestial techniques naturally originated from the celestial realm, and what kind of place was the celestial realm? It had the regulations of the netherworld as well as the regulations of the immortal realm. Thus, though Ling Han had entered into the netherworld, the might of his Tide of the Ages had not weakened the slightest bit, because it was not restrained by the regulations of the immortal realm. In a battle of equals, was a celestial technique not awesome enough? Chi Huangji was gaping in shock. The demonic lotus seal was the strongest secret technique that he had mastered presently, but such a powerful technique did not manage to show the slightest bit of might in front of Ling Han. How could he accept that? Not just him, even the Hysteria Demon Master's eyes narrowed slightly, revealing a hint of curiosity. As it was a technique he had created, he was naturally familiar with it. But in a battle of equals, it was actually dispersed so easily. This was really inconceivable. Are we continuing? Ling Han asked, smiling. Whether it was the strength of his physique or the Tide of the Ages, he was already standing in an invincible position. Huangji, come on down. The Hysteria Demon Master suddenly spoke up. Chi Huangji hurriedly descended, and half-kneeling, he said, yes, Master. He knew that this was his master giving him an out of the situation. Otherwise, if he was forced to admit defeat in public like this, he would not be able to bear it. Ling Han did not go too far either. He slowly descended as well. Immediately, the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden approached him, and gave him a sweet smile. In front of outsiders, this fierce woman still took very much care of Ling Han's pride. Meanwhile, Wu Ju pouted as if someone had snatched away his beloved toy. Li, arrange their accommodations, the Hysteria Demon Master said. Understood. Li bowed slightly. With a flutter of the Hysteria Demon Master's sleeve, the golden pathway spread out. He had already entered the city. The trifle matters of making arrangements for the accommodations of his guests was something that he needed not be concerned with, but having the strongest among his disciples making the arrangements clearly declared his regard for Ling Han. That way, it was natural that everyone had to treat Ling Han cordially. Li led Ling Han and his companion into the chaotic demon palace. This was actually a large city, and arranging a courtyard for the two of them was naturally a small matter. Li was incredibly cold, she left swiftly after making the arrangements for them. Ling Han and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden both entered into the Black Tower, asked the Empress to let them have 2 spots, and they continued to comprehend the regulations in isolation. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. Ling Han and the Empress opened their eyes practically at the same moment, and exchanged a smile. They had already improved their grasp of regulations to a level that corresponded with their own cultivation level, and had successfully merged the regulations of the 2 realms. Their battle prowess had improved further. However, the heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden was considerably inferior. The inheritance from the Phoenix Kings only allowed her to cultivate easily in the immortal realm, and was of no help to her in the netherworld. Thankfully, with the reincarnation tree, as well as various types of alchemical pills, her rate of improvement was actually not considered slow, either. It was only that she could not compare to Ling Han and the Empress. Ling Han sighed. After merging the regulations of the 2 realms, though our battle prowess has become stronger, the rate of our advancement in cultivation level has slowed down by at least half. Having to comprehend the regulations of the netherworld and the immortal realm at the same time naturally meant that they would have to devote more time. And with that, the time that he could push down the Empress would come only much later. However, this was still because he had the Black Tower, and there were still the regulations of the immortal realm within. Otherwise, they would only be able to advance forwards with only 1 foot at this time, improve their grasp of the regulations of the netherworld alone, and complete their grasp of the regulations of the immortal realm only when they return to the immortal realm in future. The Empress smiled beautifully, and hugged Ling Han's head, allowing his head to lay on her bountiful breasts. It was inevitable that Ling Han would grope her and take a little advantage of her, but he dared not go too far, or he would not be able to restrain himself from pushing her down. Thankfully, the Empress's advancement was still the fastest, and she was already close to reaching the high extreme. He exited the Black Tower, and the Empress continued to earnestly cultivate inside the Black Tower. To fulfill Ling Han's wish, she did not want to stop cultivating for even a single instant. That guy came out? Wu Ju asked. Yes, little master, a disciple answered. Good, have you made all the arrangements? Have them all move out tonight. Wu Ju clapped his hands, appearing to be very excited. I won't believe it, when sister sees how that guy indulges himself in debauchery, let's see if she would still like him. Mo Li crossed her arms over her chest on one side, and poured cold water on his enthusiasm. If you like a person, you would have enough trust in him. You will not succeed. Mo Li, why do you have to strike a blow on me? Wu Ju asked in displeasure, and then he gave himself some encouragement. I will definitely succeed. I want to show sister the true face of that guy. Ho ho. Mo Li wore a fake smile. That face of hers was practically unchanged. Wu Ju decided to ignore her. He had thought hard for a few months, and only then did he come up with this brilliant plan. How could it fail? Act according to plan. I will personally observe tonight. He thought for a moment, and then involuntarily smiled foolishly. When sister is sad, I will go and comfort her, and she will hug me just like she used to. Mo Li was involuntarily rendered speechless. You are planning to comfort her, and still want her to hug you. As expected, you have not grown up at all. Chapter 1557 Compensation. Ling Han sat in his courtyard. He was thinking over some matters. Entering into the netherworld was something he had been forced to do. He had no wish to be constantly hunted down by one, or even a whole group, of saints. Now that he had entered the netherworld, he should make some plans and decide on his next course of action. The eternally unchanging plan was naturally increasing his own abilities. Reaching this height in cultivation level, even if he was the alchemy emperor, and could ingest high-grade alchemical pills like they were candy, his advance through the cultivation levels would still be extremely slow. Going by the usual route, he would need at least 100 years before he could advance by one subminor level. This clearly was much too slow. Merely advancing into the Genesis tier would need over 1,000 years, what more blasting into the celestial realm, which would need him to be a great saint, at least a great saint that had merged the regulations of the two realms. If he wanted to increase the speed, that would require the support of saintly medicine, but just how rare were such great herbs? If I could sweep through the forbidden lands, I am sure that every forbidden land would have one or two of such great herbs, at least. But the problem is the forbidden lands have a saint king on guard, and if I had the ability to sweep through the forbidden lands, why would I need saintly medicine? Ling Han was troubled. Could I create a situation in which all the saints would leave the forbidden lands? Then I would be able to take advantage of the crisis. Would a situation like that appear? Putting that aside first, aside from improving my own abilities, there is the divine demon sword. I have to work hard on boosting it up to level 18, 19, and 20, and if there is enough top-grade saintly material, it can even become a celestial tool. Ling Han's eyes flashed. If the divine demon sword could take that step, he would really be invincible in both the netherworld and immortal realm. Even if his opponent was a saint king, he could kill him with a single strike. This can still be considered a plan, but to obtain so much saintly material seems to be even harder than obtaining saintly medicine. Ling Han sighed. The farther one walked on the path of cultivation, the steeper and narrower the path would be. Not only did one have to work hard on conquering dangerous peaks, he would also have to compete with those on the same path because this path could not accommodate too many people. If I have the chance to, I will ask the Hysteria Demon Master to see if there is any way to madly increase the rate of accumulation of origin power. I have the reincarnation tree, so comprehension of cultivation is not an issue, and the largest problem for others is already resolved in my case. Pang, pang, pang. Just when Ling Han was deep in thought, a knock sounded on the main doors. Ling Han was distracted, and used his origin power to open the doors. He saw an extremely beautiful woman was presently standing prettily at the doorway, her eyes casting coy glances at him, her lips curled seductively and filled with an alluring grace. Brother Han. This woman rushed in immediately, and looked like she was about to pounce into Ling Han's arms. But when her eyes swept over the surroundings and discovered that Ling Han was alone, she suddenly stopped. In a hurry, she loudly called out, "Brother Han! Brother Han!" She called twice in quick succession as if she was deliberately calling out his name for others to hear her. Ling Han was at a loss at first, and then he smiled. "Wu Ju sent you." The woman was surprised, and then quickly shook her head. With an alluring smile, she said, "Brother Han, what are you saying? I have especially come to develop a relationship with you because I like you." She dealt with Ling Han's question, and then loudly called out, "Brother Han! Brother Han!" Ling Han shook his head. This Wu Ju was really a kid. He thought that just because he used feminine wiles to put on a show, he would be able to drive a wedge between himself and the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. This was really the naive idea of a child. He did not stop her either, he wanted to see what kind of tricks Wu Ju was up to. In just a short while, another knock sounded on the doors. Ling Han again opened the doors with his origin power, and another delicate, charming woman entered. "Brother Han," she also called out gently. Her eyes swept over the first woman, and seeing the strange expression on her face, she couldn't help but look around the surroundings. When she did not find her other target, she couldn't help but be surprised. There was only the male lead here, so how was she supposed to make the show go on? Ling Han smiled, and asked, "You also admire me, and have thus come to offer yourself for a place in my bed?" The second woman blushed, a hint of embarrassment and fury in her eyes, but she did not fly into a rage. She only nodded very, very slightly. Ling Han smiled, and said, "Then what are you standing around for? Undress quickly. Time is priceless, so don't waste it." Both women were greatly shocked. "Are you a damn pervert? You actually intend to put on a show right in the middle of the courtyard?" And you even want to have 2 partners at the same time? Shameless. Hoodlum. Seeing you are both so shy, looks like I have to make the first move. Ling Han moved, and the 2 women immediately shouted shrilly. They wanted to flee, but how could they possibly escape from Ling Han's grasp? He merely pressed down once, and the movements of both women were sealed. As they watched Ling Han coming closer and closer, his stare perverted, both women paled in fear. One of them could not bear it any longer, and said, "We don't know you at all, it was little master who had us come here." Ling Han chuckled, looked at one corner, and then called out, "Come and take them back." Wu Ju was presently hiding at the top of a tall tower far away. When he saw Ling Han's gaze being directed at him, he hurriedly lowered his head, as if as long they didn't make eye contact, it did not count as him having been found out. Li shook her head. When would this little master finally grow up? Not just physical growth, but also spiritual and mental maturity. She leaped out, and descended into Ling Han's courtyard. "Sorry that you had to see that," she stated calmly. Ling Han smilingly said, "It's just a little kid." Though Wu Ju had hidden very far away, his ears were pricked high, and he was presently listening to them. When he heard that, he couldn't help but fume. He was not a little kid. Li waved off the 2 women, and said, "Leave." "Thank you, Mo. They did not know whether Li was male or female either. Usually, they would not have the chance to greet her. Li did not give them another look, but instead directed her gaze on Ling Han, and said, "Little master is still young, so he is unavoidably rash in his actions. To compensate you, I have a suggestion. Another month later, the Ocean Dragon Mountains will be opening, and we can give you a place of entry." Ling Han smiled, and asked, "And what is the Ocean Dragon Mountains?" "An ancient site, and it has great benefits for those beneath Genesis tier," Li stated calmly. "This ancient site is not located in the Aurora Galaxy, and is under the combined authority of over a dozen demon masters. Furthermore, the entry quota is extremely limited. Even for our chaotic demon palace, only 10 people are allowed to enter." From these words, it was evident how much of a say Li had in the chaotic demon palace. Merely 10 people were allowed to enter, and she could leave one place out of the 10 for Ling Han without consulting others. "All right. I'm free, in any case, so I'll just go take a look." "Oh, right," Ling Han paused. "Isn't Lord Hysteria capable of creating spatial god tools? Don't tell me that people can't be kept in a spatial god tool and then brought into the ancient site?" Li looked at him as if she was looking at an idiot. If a spatial god tool forcibly travels to some small worlds, it will cause the god tool to collapse. So that's how it is. Ling Han nodded internally. The Black Tower was definitely a celestial tool, and it was possible that it was best quality among celestial tools too. Thus, this kind of restriction had no effect on it. Otherwise, the Black Tower would have long since crumbled a few dozen to over 100 times with the number of mystery realms he had entered before. "We'll set out 3 days later." Li left these words behind and left. Chapter 1558 Uninvited Gues. Li, you are really too awesome. Wu Ju soon caught up with Li. "When that guy has gone off to the Ocean Dragon Mountains, I will be able to be alone with sister. I will definitely manage to convince her to leave that damn guy." Li glanced at him unemotionally. "For this trip to the Ocean Dragon Mountains, you will be going as well." "What?" Wu Ju was stunned, and then repeatedly shook his head. "I'm not going. I'm still young, so it would be better for me to earnestly cultivate here. The Ocean Dragon Mountains only opens once every few million years. The next time it opens, you will already be in the Eternal River tier," Li said. "For the opportunity of the Ocean Dragon Mountains, the earlier you go, the better it is for you." I don't want to. Ju began to act shamelessly. I managed to draw that guy away after so much hardship. I want to be alone with sister. I was not asking for your opinion, I was informing you, Li said coldly, not giving the slightest face to this little master. I will speak with father. Ju exclaimed angrily. Ho ho. Li put on a fake smile. Clearly, Ju failed. 3 days later, he appeared on the name list of 10 people. The 10 entering were Ling Han, Li, Ju, Chi Huangji, and 6 other astonishingly talented disciples. In truth, Li would not be able to gain much benefit by entering into the Ocean Dragon Mountains anymore. She was entering as a protector, to protect her junior sisters and junior brothers. Ling Han was not received cordially, because he, an outsider, had actually occupied one place of entry into the Ocean Dragon Mountains. This was something that disciples like them had worked hard for innumerable years to finally attain, and in his case, he got it the moment he came, and he was an outsider at that. But this was something that Li had personally decided, and Lord Demon Master did not disagree either. How could they possibly dare to say anything else? The Hysteria Demon Master escorted them personally. If they had boarded a starship, it would take too much time. A golden pathway stretched out, and with a flutter of the Hysteria Demon Master's sleeve, he gathered all 10 of them and traveled into the galaxy. The distance this time was even further. After a whole 17 days, they finally arrived at a barren, desolate planet. This was a dead planet. There was no spiritual chi, no life, yet it was where the Ocean Dragon Mountains were located. At this time, not only one demon master had arrived. This kind of powerful existence was each the center of the universe and incredibly dazzling. The Hysteria Demon Master went to greet these fellow elites, and the juniors also got acquainted with one another. Some of them were even rivals. Li, how many years has it been since we last met? A man walked over. He looked very young, but should already be a few dozen million years old. However, his cultivation level was too high, already in the consummate level of the Eternal River tier, and so his appearance still looked very, very young. Li looked at him naturally and nodded her head. She had greeted him. You and I have fought 7 times. You have won 4 times, and I have won 3 times. Why don't we fight our 8th time now? I should also pull the score to tie at 4 against 4, this man said, his face filled with absolute confidence. Being able to fight with Li 7 times, and the stronger between the two of them was practically undecided. He was indeed very strong. That guy's name is Zhu Ba, but we all call him Zhu Ba. Ju took on the role of commentator on his own initiative. It is said that after the first time Li defeated Zhu Ba, he began to pursue Li. Aside from him, there is no one else that has fought as many as 7 times with Li. Li was cool, neither accepting nor refusing the challenge. Zhu Ba actually did not really want to start a fight with Li. He only wanted to use that chance to talk with her. Now that this goal had been achieved, he naturally would not be aggressive, and became very humble instead. A few days later, more demon masters arrived. One after another, golden pathways stretched out. They were all escorting their own juniors and disciples over. The Overlord Sword Demon Master had also arrived. Aside from Zhu Xian, there were 9 other disciples, and not a single place of entry was wasted. When Zhu Xian spotted Ling Han, she couldn't help but look pleasantly surprised, but when her eyes fell on Ju, she involuntarily humphed coldly, and proudly turned her head away. On the day before the Ocean Dragon Mountains opened, all the demon masters had arrived. It was said that the Ocean Dragon Mountains was suspected to contain power on the level of a black demon, and thus every time it opened, there would have to be demon masters personally there on standby just in case. In the Netherworld, demon masters naturally were also divided into 4 grades, which were Heaven, Earth, Black, and Yellow demons, respectively. Heaven demon corresponded to Saint King, and Yellow Demon was equivalent to Small Saint. The Hysteria Demon Master and the others were all yellow demons, and were still unable to enter into the Ocean Dragon Mountains and suppress everything. Furthermore, if they entered, it would result in a powerful backlash from the Ocean Dragon Mountains. In previous years, it had even led to the death of a demon master, so no other demon master dared to enter again now. When people beneath demon master level entered, they would not alert this force. It seemed like they were too weak, so it couldn't be bothered to deal with them. There were a total of 17 demon masters, and 170 people entering. Some of them were well-established elites, and were even just a step away from becoming demon masters themselves, such as Mo Li. There were also complete rookies, just like Wu Ju. He was only over 100 years old, and his personality was even more childlike. A day passed, and when the sun rose up from the horizon of the barren land, a loud commotion was heard. A mountain peak broke through the ground. What was surprising was the fact that there was an ocean surrounding the mountain peak in all directions. It floated in midair, and not a single drop of water fell. This mountain peak was not very high, it was only a few hundred meters tall. The ocean was also not too expansive, but only looked to be violently raging. In truth, it was only a few thousand meters wide. But the truth was, when one stepped into this special place, the mountains would become endlessly high, and the ocean would also become boundlessly wide. It was said that merely crossing the ocean would be enough to cause 90% of the people to reluctantly give up, and among the remaining 10%, there had never been one person that had successfully climbed up to the summit. From the outside, there was a completely crystalline blue temple at the mountain summit. Vaguely, one could see the stone statue of a true dragon crouched on top, and that was why it was named the Ocean Dragon Mountains. This was the Ocean Dragon Mountains Mystery Realm. It looked like it could be entered from all directions, but that was not the truth of the matter, as they would only crash into an invisible wall. If one wanted to enter, they could only pass through the main doors. That was an arched door that was about 3 meters tall, and there were multiple true dragons carved onto the doorposts. "Quickly enter, you all have 3 years' time," one demon master said. Everyone was just about to move when they saw a golden pathway stretch over. Xiao, in an instant, another 6 people appeared. There was an old man that looked to be in his 60s or 70s, and the others were all young people, in the prime of their youth and bursting with vitality. The 17 demon masters all narrowed their eyes. They were the rulers of the galaxies in this surrounding area, and they were naturally aware of all the elites in the area, but they were really not the slightest bit familiar with this old man. But it just so happened that he was also a demon master, and a very strong one at that. He could be considered a big shot among yellow demons. What a spot of good luck. I just happened to pass by, and actually encountered the opening of a historical site. The newly arrived demon master, the old man, smilingly said, "With such a coincidence, this is preordained fate. You all should enter and seek out your own fortune." "Yes, sixth elder." The 5 young people all nodded respectfully. "Wait." The Hysteria demon master spoke up. "Friend, as a guest, you are overstepping your boundaries." Chapter 1559 Inconceivably Strong. The elderly demon master looked at the Hysteria demon master, swept his eyes over the other demon masters, and only then did he say, "You all have an objection too?" The Overlord Sword demon master took a step forward, and declared, "Outsiders are not welcome here." "Ho ho." The elderly demon master chuckled, and said, "If you all have the ability to chase me off, I naturally will leave. Otherwise, just shut your mouths." All the demon masters glared at the old man, their eyes leaking a menacing coldness. "As an outsider, you actually dared to be so arrogant? Come and battle me," the old man declared menacingly, acting extremely proud. The 5 young people he brought also crossed their arms over their chests. Looking at the arrogant expressions on their faces, they did not seem to take anyone seriously, not even these demon masters. This was a superiority that radiated from their very bones. A thought flashed in Ling Han's head. This kind of demeanor seemed very familiar. The Overlord Sword Demon Master did not say another word, and waved out a hand. A flash of sword light sliced towards the old man. This flash of sword light was only about a foot long, and looked very ordinary. But how could the attack of a demon master be anything ordinary? The old man smiled faintly, and pressed his hand down. He had gripped that flash of sword light in his hand, and with a squeeze, the sword light was forcibly obliterated, and did not give rise to any waves at all. Seeing this scene, all the demon masters showed an expression of shock. The Overlord Sword Demon Master obviously had not used his full strength, but he belonged to the top-grade category among yellow demons. Even a casual attack possessed astonishing might, yet it was dispersed in such a relaxed manner. The old man's abilities were unfathomably deep. If they started a life-and-death battle with this kind of elite, even if the 7 of them combined forces, it was possible that he could kill 1 or 2 of them in the process. Who would be willing to die when they had reached the height of Demon Master? The old man had used his abilities to prove that he indeed had the right to be standing here. Ho ho, for people of our level, resorting to violence is too much below our status. Why don't we allow our juniors to exchange a few moves? A female demon master spoke up. She was an old woman, and her hand held a crimson-red walking stick. She looked like a doddering old woman. But this walking stick was a saint tool, and possessed astonishing might. When the other demon masters heard this, they all nodded. Among these disciples and juniors of theirs, there were a few incredibly impressive existences, such as Mo Li and Zhu Ba. Allowing them to confront each other in battle would both allow the battle to be carried out in a controllable manner, and also allow these outsiders to retreat willingly. The old man looked indifferent, and only showed a profound smile. He naturally knew clearly the line of thought of these demon masters. He turned around, and said, Moer, go and seek some guidance from these people. Yes, 6th Elder. A young man walked out. He was very handsome, and had very fair skin, but there was a vague golden luster in his complexion. He swept an eye over the many young people gathered here with a smile, and said, I am Tan Mo. Who would be sparring with me? The Overlord Sword Demon Master and the other elites paused slightly, and then spoke up. Mo Li, Sword Dao, Yun He, it will be the 3 of you. Send 3 of yours out as well, the Hysteria Demon Master said to the old man. The old man merely smiled, and replied, no need, 1 person is enough. You wanted to have a 1 versus 3 battle? It should be known that Mo Li, Zhu Ba, and Yun He were all the strongest elites of the Eternal River tier, and all of them had formed more than 1 million stars. If it were not for the fact that the regulations of Genesis tier were too difficult to comprehend, they would have become demon masters long ago. I'll go first. Zhu Ba said. He also had his own pride, and naturally would not be willing to combine forces with others. Tan Mo was indifferent, and said, make your move. He acted very calm, like he was giving some guidance to a lackey. Fury rose up in Zhu Ba's heart. He took a step forward, and shot out a punch from afar. There were a great many demon masters present, so there was absolutely no need for him to be reserved. He used his full abilities in his first move, and had no need to worry that the aftermath and shock waves would cause too much destruction. Tan Mo pressed a palm down lightly, and a silvery river suddenly appeared, multiple stars shattering within, presenting a terrifying scene. This was not as ordinary as merely a frightening scene, its might was even more terrifying. It gave rise to waves that could destroy the world, and they blasted out towards Zhu Ba. Zhu Ba dared not take this attack head-on, and hurriedly leaped up, avoiding this blow. Even the demon masters were stunned. How could this guy's power be so strong? Just how many stars had he formed? Though an eternal river tier could form innumerable stars theoretically, this was merely theory. In truth, Once one had formed more than 1,000,000 stars, because he had not unlocked the upper limit of his cultivation level, forming every additional star was extraordinarily difficult, and it would become more and more difficult as time went on. Even for those as strong as Mo Li and the others, they had only formed around 1,100,000 stars. This was a publicly acknowledged upper limit. No matter how freakishly talented you were, you would only attain this point and no further. Then, how could Tan Mo have such overwhelming power? Tan Mo took the initiative to attack. He merely struck out with palm strikes, and did not use any kind of secret technique, but because his power was really too strong, it had reached a completely overwhelming point. What need was there for him to use any kind of secret technique? Everyone paled. Zhu Ba was the synonym for the strongest of the eternal river tier in their hearts, but now he was evading like he was a duck that was being chased to and fro. He did not even have the ability to fight back, which stunned all of them. You all come at me too. Tan Mo pressed down a palm again, and pulled both Mo Li and Yun He into the battle. 3 great big shots of the eternal river tier joined forces, but it was useless. Tan Mo was like the heavenly emperor of many realms, able to suppress all with a single palm. The 3 big shots were all no match for him, and could only retreat and dodge repeatedly. Enough! The Hysteria Demon Master waved a hand, and stopped the battle. Then, he asked the old man, "How should I address you, my friend? From whence have you come?" The old man chuckled. "I am Tan Feng, and I come from Dongchang." Dongchang? What galaxy or planet was this? The demon masters all looked at one another, and could see confusion in each other's eyes. "Friend Tan, your disciples may all enter. However, as there is a force on the level of Black Demon, at least, if we enter, we would become the target of attack of this force. Thus, we all need to wait here," the old female demon master explained. Tan Feng showed a hint of surprise, but he immediately withdrew his shock. He nodded, and said, "Amoer, take good care of your clansmen." "Understood." Tan Mo nodded respectfully. Then, he nodded at his 4 clansmen. They took the lead in entering into the stone-arched doorway. Once they passed through, their figures became endlessly smaller, and then disappeared from view. Even the demon masters could no longer catch sight of them. The others all looked livid. This clearly was an ancient site that they had discovered, and not only did they have to share it with outsiders now, the latter even entered the ancient site before them. But if they encountered these 5 people inside the ancient site, they unfortunately could only avoid them. Tan Mo was too strong. "Go on." Ling Han and the others also walked towards the stone-arched doorway one after another. Their figures disappeared in succession, and when they reappeared, they had already entered into the ancient site. There was an endless and boundless ocean before their eyes. This was expected because they could already see this from the outside. However, because they had not experienced it personally, they could not imagine just how wide and expansive this massive ocean was. The first step was to cross the ocean. Ling Han stood in midair. Ahead of him, a great many people were already in the midst of crossing the ocean, and there was completely no trace of Tan Mo and his group who had been the first to enter. "There is something I need here," Small Tower suddenly spoke up. Chapter 1560 Massive Waves. Ling Han stared blankly, and asked, "What is that?" "Chaos Source Rock," Small Tower replied. "It was that thing again." Ling Han nodded, and said, "I will get it for you if I get the chance." "Not just a chance, but it is an absolute must for you to get it," Small Tower declared solemnly. "This Chaos Source Rock is extremely large. I can sense the waves of source power from it even from so far away. If I can extract the power contained within, it would be greatly beneficial to my recovery." Ling Han thought for a moment, and asked, "Beneficial to what extent?" "You can get one chance for a power boost, Small Tower said calmly. Ling Han's eyes lit up. How strong would it be? You can defeat all below the Celestial King tier. Gasp. Ling Han revealed an expression of shock. Though he did not know in what level Celestial Kings were considered to be in the Celestial Realm, but to be able to lay claim to the name of Celestial King meant they could be considered kings in the Celestial Realm. If they were not at the top level, who would dare use this name? Right, I will definitely get it for you. He made his decision. With this power boost, he would be able to sweep aside all opposition in one Forbidden Land. If all the saints of the Forbidden Land had left, he would be able to conquer it completely. You are indeed thinking of nothing but personal gain, snob. Small Tower retorted in disdain. Ling Han was speechless. Would this proud tower be unable to sleep easy if it did not mock him at least once a day? Where is it? He asked. He had long since learned to ignore Small Tower's poisonous tongue. At the top of the mountain in the middle of the ocean. Ling Han stared into the distance. The mountain peak that was initially only a few hundred meters tall had practically pierced through the clouds in this place. Even if he was an endlessly long distance from it, he could still vaguely see its outline. Despicable guy, we're leaving. Wu Ju's voice rang out. Ling Han looked over. Mo Li was already leading the group to cross the ocean. Not just them, the others were also crossing the ocean. There were 10 in each group, and they all drew out their precious tools that were capable of flight. There were ships, lotus flower stages, and bowls, but they were all flying in midair. Not one of them was traveling in the water. He followed suit. With a leap, he had already arrived on the small boat that Mo Li was steering. This was a lone raft, and looked like it could only accommodate about 10 odd people. Whilst it was rapidly traveling, sharp winds blasted at them, causing them to feel as if their skin was being sliced by sharp knives. Thankfully, as long as they activated their origin power as defense, this did not pose much of a threat. Ling Han was uncaring. His physique was too strong, so even when the strong winds hit him, they were not the slightest bit of threat to him. The flying raft pierced through the air, and the disciples and juniors of the 17 demon masters all formed a row. None stood in front of the others. This seemed very calm and peaceful. Though the ocean was overwhelmingly huge, they would probably be able to reach the other side in about a few months' time. Why was it said that a great many people did not even manage to cross the ocean? A few hours soon passed. Though there would be occasionally a few waves rolling out in the ocean, it was still considerably peaceful. Suddenly, Ling Han's eyes snapped open. He stood up. He saw that there was a white line in the distance that was rapidly approaching them, and it was at an extraordinarily rapid pace at that. Despicable guy, what are you making a fuss for? Wu Ju immediately demanded. He simply did not like Ling Han. A wave is here. Yet Mo Li's expression was one of utmost seriousness. Make a formation, let's withstand it together. Aside from Ling Han and Wu Ju, the others all looked solemn. It was clear that they had long since known what that was. Ling Han sighed. Though he had been pulled in, he was still completely in the dark. He had absolutely no idea what the exact situation was in this Ocean Dragon Mountain mystery realm. At present, he only knew that there was a Chaos Source rock. It was very big, and could be used to recover the Black Tower, allowing him to have a chance for a power boost, and being able to easily kill many great elites even from the Celestial Realm. He did not dare be careless, either. If one dared relax his guard in a mystery realm, that was just courting death. The white line was coming closer and closer. Ling Han could already clearly see that it was indeed a wave, but it was too frightening. It was 3,000 meters tall, and it was like a whole mountain was about to slam into them. Can't we fly the flying raft above 3,000 meters? He asked. It was not only them, the other flying tools that the others were aboard did not rise up either. Instead, they chose to confront the wave head-on. No. Li shook her head. Above 3,000 meters, the strong winds are very frightening, and the precious tool would immediately be destroyed. Ling Han nodded. He knew that there was definitely a reason that Li and the others had done so, it was only that he did not know what that reason was. Boom! The massive wave was rolling out too quickly. In a mere instant, one could already hear a huge commotion. This was very inconceivable. It was clear that the massive wave was rolling out at a speed that had exceeded the full speed dash of most eternal river tears, yet the sound of it reached them first. Get ready! Li called out loudly. Everyone concentrated, and their power soared to the limit. The massive wave slammed into them. Wang, the flying raft immediately released an ear-piercing noise. That was the sound of the material that was used to build the precious tool currently sustaining a great pressure. Suddenly, 3 people were sent flying by the wave. Ling Han, being sharp-sighted and deft, forcibly pulled these 3 people back. Pang, pang, pang. The flying raft sank into the wave's wall. All of them were being struck by the wave. The defense of origin power of a large number of them was instantly obliterated. Then, their faces turned ashen as they coughed up copious amounts of blood. However, though the wave's wall was very thick, this wave was really rolling out too quickly. It was truly just the blink of the eye, and the wave had passed them. Wu Ju and the others all slumped onto the ground. The little bottom was still fine, and did not sustain any injury. Ling Han had seen clearly that there was a flash of white light on this brat's chest. It should have been a precious tool that had activated and blocked the impact of the huge wave. However, the others were not so lucky. A few of them broke some bones, and they were moaning there with pale faces. Oh no! Li's expression was solemn. Her eternally wooden face was actually wearing a frown. Our luck is not so good this time, we actually encountered the fiercest tides. Then, I'm going back first. You guys go on ahead, work hard. Wu Ju immediately declared. He still wanted to tempt the heavenly phoenix divine maiden away from Ling Han's side, yet did not know that she was presently together with Ling Han. Li humphed, and retorted, the moment one enters this mystery realm, there is no way out. You can only wait for the 3 years to be up, and be naturally expelled from this mystery realm, so just give up the idea. Ah! Wu Ju slumped onto the ground, wanting to cry but having no tears. Ling Han shook his head. He was really rendered speechless by this kid. Then, he asked Li, what's going on with these waves? In the past, the demon masters had come here, and deduced that there should have been a supreme great elite that had died in the ocean. Thus, it created waves in the ocean, and there are naturally shards of the regulations that great elite had grasped embedded within them. They possess frightening destructive power, Li said. Furthermore, we have just reached the ocean, so the power of the waves should be at their weakest, but based on my experience, the might of the waves now has already reached the level of traveling midway across the ocean in the past. This can be claimed to be one of the most frightening tides in history. When Chi Huangji and the others heard this, they were all very depressed. They had only managed to enter into this ocean dragon mountain mystery realm with much difficulty, and to their great misfortune, they encountered a year of calamity. Whom could they voice the injustice to? Before the next wave hits, let's quickly leave. Li thought for a moment. Though the massive waves are frightening, the shards of regulations of that great elite would also nurture natural treasures. The last time I entered, I saw a divine bamboo with 9 segments. This time, it will probably be flowering and bearing fruit. It was not easy for bamboo to flower. Once it did, it meant that it was close to the end of its lifespan. At the conclusion of its life, a divine bamboo would pour all the essence that it had accumulated in its lifetime into the fruit that would be born after the flower bloomed. This was a precious treasure, a great herb that even demon masters and saints would be tempted by. Chapter 1561 Caught Up. Ling Han's eyes suddenly lit up. What he lacked was precisely saintly medicine. Li continued to steer the raft forwards, while the others all did their best to recover their vitality. After a few more hours, there would be another barrage by a massive wave. If they could not recover to their prime condition before that, the negative effects would endlessly accumulate, and would definitely result in serious injury. The other groups did not seem to be any better, especially those groups without such super elites like Li, Zhu Ba, and Yunhe on standby. They were all bruised and battered. A few hours later, the second huge wave came as expected. Pang! In the midst of the fierce barrage, a considerable number again coughed blood and experienced broken bones, and the flying raft was also undergoing a serious test. Going by this trend, let alone reaching the mountain peak in the middle of the ocean, it would be a problem for them to even travel 1/3 of the way there. The ship will be destroyed in the end, but before that, we'll try to get as close as possible, Li said. If she was the only one on this journey, she naturally would not need to use whatever flying raft. She only had to physically fly there. However, her main reason for entering here was to take care of these junior sisters and junior brothers of hers. Thus, the flying raft was the best option. It could allow these junior sisters and brothers to get as much time as possible to adjust. However, though the massive waves this time were frightening, Ling Han was also on board, and if he used his full battle prowess, he was in no way inferior to Li, so it naturally allowed this group of theirs to have a much easier time than the others with the combined effort and help of these two great big shots. It could be seen that Ling Han's group of 10 were already in the lead. The other dozen or so groups, meanwhile, were quite a distance behind. Furthermore, they no longer advanced together at the same pace. Those groups that had a big shot on standby were in front, and those without were behind. The poorer their abilities, the farther behind they were. There's something ahead. Ling Han's eyes were focused on the surface of the ocean. He stretched out his hand, and origin power formed a huge hand that grabbed out at the ocean's surface. No! Li hurriedly advised. But it was too late. Ling Han had already scooped up the ocean's water, and withdrew the large hand. When he opened his palm, he saw that there was some duckweed in his grasp, and it had borne a small silvery chestnut. Spiritual treasure silver chestnut. Li's eyes lit up, and then she revealed a sliver of shock. Your hand is actually unwounded. Spiritual treasure silver chestnut, a level 16 godly medicine, could be used to concoct various kinds of high-grade divine pills, and could be considered one of the very best among saintly medicines. Ling Han was very pleased, and put the silver chestnut away into the black tower. Then, he asked, why would my hand be wounded? How could she curse him like that? A disciple answered, Brother Ling, don't forget that there are shards of regulations belonging to a supreme great elite in the ocean's water. Dipping your hand into the water would be equivalent to colliding with these shards of regulations. It would easily wound even a big shot. Otherwise, why would we choose not to travel underwater? If they traveled underwater, it would perhaps be slightly slower, but they would be able to avoid the massive waves, and it was much safer. But hearing these words from him, it was indeed impossible to travel underwater. That would be equivalent to taking the initiative to confront the huge waves at all times. If they emerged from the experience without severe wounds, that would be the true strange thing. So that was the case. Ling Han nodded. It looked like his physique was indeed too strong, and even the shards of regulations could not wound him. This definitely corresponded to cultivation level. The higher the cultivation level, the more impact would be felt. However, his physique had far surpassed his cultivation level, so he was naturally completely unscathed. The flying raft advanced, and as they continued to venture deeper into this ocean, they could also see a great many godly medicines on their way. The majority of them ended up in Ling Han's pocket, but he did not spend the time to harvest some of them, due to the distance factor. Because they had not seen Tan Mo and his group all this while, it meant that those 5 people were still ahead of them. If they delayed too much on their journey, that divine bamboo would fall into the hands of others. That was saintly medicine, and even 10,000 high-grade godly medicines could not compare to it. In truth, Ling Han really did not lack godly medicines. Previously, when he had been in the Medicine King's cave, he had harvested a great many. Otherwise, he could not possibly simply concoct any kind of eternal river tier-level divine pill as he liked like he could at present. The massive waves here adhered to their own rhythm. There would be a wave about every 12 hours, which just happened to be half a day's time. After they had experienced a total of 27 waves, they had completely thrown off the 16 groups behind them from their tail, and they finally spotted Tan Mo's group in front. These 5 people were actually seated on a spread-out scroll. It was very big, and was 30 meters long and 9 meters wide. It was completely golden, and there were densely packed characters which rose up into multiple demonic patterns written on it. Each demonic pattern seemed capable of suppressing eternity. Ling Han and his group spotted Tan Mo and their group, and the latter clearly spotted them as well. They all looked disdainful, and 2 of them even used their hands to form insulting gestures. Mo Li, catch up with quickly, we'll beat these bastards to death. Wu Ju howled in fury. Yet Mo Li's expression was solemn, and she coldly commanded, do not make trouble. Tan Mo was too strong. He had even surpassed the level of a big shot, and he could be claimed to be a pseudo-demon master. She even suspected that great elites that had just reached demon master tier might be far inferior to Tan Mo in terms of power. Wu Ju pouted, looking completely like a little bottom. Tan Mo sat cross-legged in the foremost position. He also turned his eyes their way, and there was some surprise in his gaze, as if he was confused how Ling Han and his group could have possibly caught up to them. It should be known that the scroll that they were astride was not an ordinary object, but a decree that was personally written by a heaven demon. The strongest regulations of heaven and earth of the netherworld were condensed within. But even so, they still experienced much strain when they were being barraged by the huge waves. The shards of regulations embedded in these huge waves would be stronger the stronger their foe was, and even the decree of a heaven demon could not suppress them. But with the decree of a heaven demon, they definitely had a large advantage over everyone else. They should have left those people behind them farther and farther behind, so how could it be possible that others would catch up with them? Tan Mo's expression was like a smile yet not a smile, and a hint of killing intent leaked into his eyes. This was a very clear warning. Don't even think of trying to catch up, or he would definitely not be reserved. Mo Li and the others naturally saw this kind of warning clearly, and they were all furious. This mystery realm belonged to their 17 demon masters. You all were only outsiders, and not only did outsiders like you overwhelm your hosts, you actually dared to be so imperious. How preposterous. Tan Mo withdrew his gaze, and looked ahead. He was completely indifferent about the reactions of Ling Han and his group. In his eyes, they were all absolute trash. Even if they were defiant, so what? Did they actually dare come close? If they did, he would dare to kill them. Too arrogant. Chi Huangji and the others all grumbled. Ling Han did not say a word. At present, he did not have a conflict of interest with Tan Mo yet, but once the 9-segment divine bamboo was found, if a fight started and that was practically a confirmed matter, then he would not shrink back either. He would deal with him with the divine demon sword. It could be claimed that even if Hu Feng caught up with him at this time, Ling Han would dare confront him head-on too. Of course, it would only be 1 or 2 strikes. More than that, and he would still have to retreat, but he even dared to stand against a saint, so what worth did you, a pseudo-demon master or semi-demon master, have? The person who laughed last would laugh best. Boom. It was at this moment that the 28th huge wave rolled out towards them from afar. The decree that Tan Mo's group was aboard immediately exploded in a burst of golden light, as if a demon master was about to walk out from within, forcibly slicing a passageway through the massive wave. Yet the huge wave was indeed not to be trifled with, either. Multiple seals lit up in the ocean water and began to attack them. As the wave swept over them, Tan Mo's group all paled. Even the speed of progression of the decree had sharply decreased. At this time, Ling Han and the others also greeted the incoming huge wave. Boom! Chapter 1562 Harvesting Frui. Outside. Tan Feng continuously circled around the ancient site. On the outside, it was only 3,000 meters wide and a few hundred meters high. As this powerful demon master circled, he was calculating by his knuckles. If Ling Han had seen this, he would definitely have been incredibly stunned. This was making a prediction. Even someone as strong as the Star Sand Saint was unable to predict the affairs of the world. This seemed to be a secret technique that belonged solely to the Forbidden Lands, and could also possibly be an ability that only the 8 Stones Forbidden Land possessed. But now, Tan Feng had that ability too. Just where exactly had he come from? Extraordinary! Extraordinary! Tan Feng's eyes became brighter and brighter. This is definitely not left behind by any black demon. A black demon does not possess such strong power to be able to block off my prediction. Even a heaven demon could not. I would still be able to find out 1 or 2 clues. This definitely must have fallen from the celestial realm. In that great turmoil those eons ago, who knows how many powerful forces have been overthrown, and it would not be strange for the ancient sites of the celestial realm to appear in the immortal realm. This is not something that a few juniors can deal with, even I could not. There is a need to ask the Grand Elder to come personally. He unobtrusively walked to one side and drew out a stone, which he spoke a few words to. A wave that even the demon masters were not able to grasp was already being transmitted to the depths of the universe, and in an instant, the message traversed millions and millions of miles. Though the Overlord Sword Demon Master and the others turned to look at him, they did not discover anything off. Even for those as strong as they were, there were in truth a great many things that they were not aware of. Boom, the huge wave swept over them, and multiple cracks had already appeared on the flying raft. It looked like it definitely would not survive the next wave. Li directly drew out a second flying raft, and everyone switched onto it. The first raft was allowed to drop into the ocean. Their distance from Tan Mo and his group was a little smaller now. Li steered the flying raft, but did not catch up to them. Tan Mo showed an expression of arrogance. Because there were shards of regulations in the waves, he could not see how Ling Han and his group had dealt with the barrage of the massive wave, but it was obvious that these people were very wary of him. They didn't even dare to approach him too close. They were merely a few ants of the netherworld. After traveling a further while, a green bamboo appeared ahead of them. It was protruding from the wide ocean just like that. It could already be seen even when there were at least a few thousand miles separating them from it. It was clear how wide and tall this green bamboo was. They had found it, the 9-segment divine bamboo. Tan Mo and his group naturally saw it as well because they slightly changed their course, and headed towards that divine bamboo. Li frowned slightly. Once Tan Mo and his group wanted to snatch that divine bamboo, how was she to stop them? Putting aside the fact that there were only herself and Ling Han here, even if all the disciples and juniors of the 17 demon masters were all here in combined forces, they might not be able to stop Tan Mo either. His strength had reached an overwhelming extent, and the advantage of numbers was completely insufficient to compensate for this gap in power. But to give up just like this, she was definitely unwilling. Follow them. There was absolutely no need to spend too much time to cross a distance of a few thousand miles for a flight god tool. In a short while, they had already come endlessly close to this divine bamboo. It was really too huge. Merely the part that was sticking out from the ocean bed was already 30,000 meters tall, and it was several hundred meters wide. Furthermore, at the top of the divine bamboo, a green fruit could clearly be seen. Even from such a far distance, a refreshing fragrance could vaguely be smelt. The divine bamboo is already dead, Li said slowly. They had never thought that she would actually have such an emotional side to her. This divine bamboo was indeed already dead. Though the body of the divine bamboo still had divine seals of great Tao floating on it, its vitality had already disappeared. However, at the top, that green fruit was still flourishing with life. This was a fruit that the divine bamboo had poured all its essence into. A precious treasure. The body of the bamboo could be made into a demonic tool, while the fruit was a supremely valuable medicine. Get down here. Tan Mo suddenly shot out a fist at the body of the bamboo, wanting to shake this fruit down with brute force. He previously should have tried this before. The air here was filled with a frightening pressure, and even he dared not be rash. Wang, densely packed seals on the body of the bamboo lit up, but they returned to an undisturbed state very soon. It did not even tremble. What a joke, this was saintly material here, and you thought you could deal a shock to it? Tan Mo involuntarily frowned. He couldn't climb up, and the fruit would not drop down from being shaken, so what was to be done? Furthermore, he also wanted to collect this divine bamboo. If he refined it to the length of a few feet, it would definitely be a supreme demonic tool. Ling Han stood up, and said, "You guys wait a while for me." Without waiting for Li and the others to react, he was already soaring upwards into the skies. This guy was planning to fly directly to the top of the divine bamboo and harvest the fruit. This guy's physique is astonishing, so perhaps he really does have a chance, someone said. But Tan Mo and his group are just watching from the sidelines. Even if Ling Han got it, they would be snatching it, right? Once he gets it, we will flee as quickly as possible. I am sure they will not be able to catch up. That's right, the fact that we managed to catch up to them clearly means that our speed is faster than theirs. Everyone was conversing excitedly. At this time, even Wu Ju did not set himself against Ling Han, and proposed ideas from the sidelines. However, Li's expression was grave. She had exchanged blows with Tan Mo before, and had a real idea of how powerful the latter was. If Ling Han really succeeded, that decree might indeed be unable to catch up to them, but wouldn't Tan Mo be able to attack them on his own? He absolutely did not need the decree to be able to sweep aside all eternal river tears. That level of strength was practically enough to make anyone hopeless. But Ling Han had already flown up into the skies, so they could only proceed with caution now. When he came back down, they would act according to the circumstances. Tan Mo and his group also saw Ling Han's action, and couldn't help but scoff in disdain. What an idiot. Even we do not dare to exceed the height of 3,000 meters, and this brat actually deludes himself into thinking about flying up directly to harvest the divine fruit. He is really out of his mind. Ignore him. Brother Mo, with this divine bamboo being so sturdy, it is completely impossible to shake the divine fruit down, so what do we do? Tan Mo pondered for a moment, and then said, "The value of this mystery realm possibly far surpasses the estimation of those demon masters outside. I think Lord Sixth Elder should have already informed the clan, and by then, even if Grand Elder does not personally come, either Fifth Elder or Fourth Elder will definitely come. The whole mystery realm will be ours." "That's right, it's all ours," the other four young people all proudly declared, considering this to be inevitable and right. They looked at Ling Han. Though they were sure that he definitely would not be able to succeed, they did not leave. In any case, the distance of 30,000 meters could be crossed in a short while for Eternal River Tier, so it would not be too late for them to leave once they witnessed his failure. Ling Han shot through the air, and as his altitude increased, he gradually felt a pressure exerted on him. The air itself was like knives, and was incredibly sharp. However, this was completely not enough to wound him. His speed did not decrease, and he rushed madly all the way. Very soon, he had broken through the forbidden elevation of 3,000 meters, and was still shooting upwards. No way! Seeing this scene, Chi Huangji and the others were all dumbfounded. They knew that Ling Han's physique was astonishing, but they did not have a substantial idea of how strong it was. Now, with a clear comparison, they couldn't help but gape. On Tan Mo's side, those four were also exchanging looks and rendered speechless, yet Tan Mo's eyes lit up, a smile curling up the corners of his lips. If Ling Han could harvest it, that would be good too. It would be just right to benefit him instead. Chapter 1563. The broken wooden sword shows its migh. When he had reached the height of 24,000 meters, Ling Han also felt strained. It was not that his physique couldn't hold up to the pressure, but rather that the pressure here was too heavy, and formed a powerful hindrance. If he wanted to go further up, he would have to pay an exorbitant price. He could barely still persist, but when he reached 27,000 meters, he could not fly any further up no matter how hard he tried. This was the limit. Ling Han was unwilling to give up. The divine fruit was just 3,000 meters away, and he could smell its strong fragrance from here, causing every pore on his body to open up. If he could directly consume it, the effects would definitely be shockingly great. But how was he to get hold of it? He stopped, and sliced out a palm at the top of the bamboo. The force of his palm strike turned into sword chi, which was astonishingly sharp. But there was also an unknown might in the air here. When he blasted out the sword chi, it was being continuously erased in the process of flying over, as if it was affected by tide of the ages. However, the tide of the ages was the power of time, and this was another kind of power that directly destroyed it. This flash of sword chi merely shot out 90 meters away, and was then completely dispersed. The gap was too big. Ling Han shot out the annihilating dragon star arrow, but it only widened this distance to 210 meters. He did not use the ultimate arrow. As he thought, even if he could shoot it out more than 10 times the distance, so what? It was still impossible to reach a distance of 3,000 meters. Was there any other way? Ling Han thought for a moment, then drew out the broken wooden sword, and stabbed it into the body of the bamboo. Wang! The sword's tip pierced into the body of the bamboo. Suddenly, multiple seals shone on the divine bamboo, resisting the broken wooden sword. It should be known that though the broken wooden sword was battered and run down, if one received a direct strike from it, even saints and demon masters would be killed. As expected of saintly material. This result was also within Ling Han's expectations. After all, they were both saintly materials. He merely wanted to give it a try. He was just about to withdraw the sword when he saw that multiple demonic patterns were also glowing on the broken wooden sword. This was strange. He had not used his origin power to activate it at all. The broken wooden sword had awakened automatically. He naturally dismissed the plans to withdraw the broken wooden sword, and instead watched on quietly. The broken wooden sword's demonic patterns all glowed, and a frightening black chi was simultaneously exuding from it. That represented the regulations of the netherworld. It was filled with murderous intent, causing even Ling Han's eyes to become bloodshot, and made him feel an urge to slaughter everything in this world. He hurriedly guarded his divine sense. No matter how strong a tool was, it was still a tool, and should only be controlled. The opposite definitely could not be allowed to happen. With a pu, the broken wooden sword actually stabbed into the body of the bamboo. At first, Ling Han was stunned, which was quickly followed by joy. He hurriedly exerted force in his grip on the sword hilt. He wanted to slice the divine bamboo in half, and that divine sword at its top would naturally become his. However, only now did he know how sturdy saintly material was. The broken wooden sword seemed to have taken root in the bamboo, and he couldn't move it at all. If this demonic sword did not show its might on its own, he could do absolutely nothing against the divine bamboo. Ling Han was startled. What was he to do? Could it be he would lose a divine sword in the process of trying to get the divine fruit instead? Wait, no. He looked at where the broken wooden sword had pierced into the body of the bamboo, and saw that the bamboo that had initially been as green as jade actually showed a sliver of sallowness. He blew out a breath of air, and the yellow and withered part of the bamboo suddenly turned into dust, which floated in the air. This. Ling Han's heart jolted. This broken wooden sword seemed to have the ability of swallowing as well, though what it swallowed was not metal, but rather the 9-segment divine bamboo that was similarly of the wood element. The 9-segment divine bamboo lightly trembled. One after another, bamboo leaves fell, light as feathers, but this was saintly material here. One fallen leaf also carried frightening destructive power. How could Ling Han possibly dare allow even one to touch him? He continuously dodged and evaded in midair. The speed of absorbing of the broken wooden sword seemed to become faster and faster. Ling Han could clearly see that the withered part that the sword had penetrated was expanding both upwards and downwards, spreading out over the whole body of the bamboo. After about a few hours, he could see a green fruit fall down from the skies. That was the fruit borne by the 9-segment divine bamboo, because even the branch that was connected to the fruit had had its essence extracted, and could no longer bear the fruit. Ling Han quickly made his move. He wrapped his divine sense around it, and directly drew it into the black tower. Now, no one would be able to take it from him. Boom, the whole divine bamboo crumbled, all its divine essence was swallowed by the broken wooden sword, and it decayed. Meanwhile, there was actually a battered part of the broken wooden sword that had recovered, its color was clearly slightly brighter. Ling Han was shocked, and asked Small Tower, "Is this sword also on the level of a celestial tool?" Tisk. Small Tower scoffed coldly as if it was filled with disdain. "Will you die if you speak nicely?" Ling Han began to threaten it. "Otherwise, don't even think about the Chaos Source Rock." Only now did Small Tower concede, and replied, "Natural selection is an ironclad rule of heaven and earth. Both of them belong to the wood element, so they naturally would be able to swallow each other, but on the question of becoming a celestial tool, that is truly wishful thinking. As far as I know, among wood element materials that could become celestial tool, there are only a mere 3 types. What are they?" Ling Han's curiosity was incited greatly. "There is no need for you to know at present," Small Tower declared impatiently. "Go and get that Chaos Source Rock." Sigh, was this his precious tool or his master? Ling Han shook his head, but did not bicker with Small Tower. He knew its personality very well. He flew downwards, internally very pleased. He had gotten a divine sword, and also helped the broken wooden sword get a certain degree of upgrade. Though it was completely looked down on and disdained by Small Tower, before he entered into the celestial realm, this should be an incredibly powerful precious tool for him. Hand over the saint fruit, as well as that sword. Tan Mo stood in his path and said such words in a neutral tone, as natural as if he was a senior issuing a command to his junior. At this time, there were flight god tools approaching from the distance. That was Zhu Ba, Yun He, and the others. Though they had been left very far behind, Ling Han had also spent a very long time to harvest the divine fruit, which was enough time for them to catch up. The flight god tools stopped one after another. At first, everyone was unsure what was going on, but after Chi Huangji and the others explained, they naturally understood the situation. Mo Li, Zhu Ba, and Yun He all stepped out, and declared, "Whatever one attains in the mystery realm is based on one's own strength. If you want to take something by force, you will have to pass through us. Just a group of trash, do you think I do not dare to kill you all?" Tan Mo asked coldly. At first, he had disdain from even attacking this group of ants, but the saintly medicine was much too important. Even their clan only possessed 2 such treasures. Furthermore, they hadn't ripened yet, and could not be used. If he could ingest a saint fruit, the benefits would naturally be shocking. It was definitely nothing that these country bumpkins could imagine. Giving it to these people? That was an absolute waste and insult. We don't believe you dare. Zhu Ba, Yun He, and the others shook their heads. There were 17 demon masters on standby outside. Do you dare mess around? Tan Mo revealed a dreadful grin. What you all are doing is courting death. He leaped out, and charged over at Mo Li, Zhu Ba, and the others. A silvery river appeared around him, densely packed with stars. There were too many than could be counted. Gods. This, innumerable, was in the relative sense of the word. With the eyes of the eternal river Tyr, it naturally was not a problem to count them. Once they saw how many stars Tan Mo possessed, everyone trembled. More than 2,500,000 stars. Chapter 1564 Slaying a Big Sho. This was inconceivable. Zhu Ba, Mo Li, and some others had all surpassed the pinnacle level of the eternal river Tyr, and formed over 1 million heavenly bodies. However, it would be incredibly difficult for them to form any more. If the difficulty of a demon master forming an extra heavenly body on top of their foundational 1 million was assigned a value of 1, then the difficulty of an eternal river Tyr elite achieving this would have a value of 100. Moreover, this difficulty would continue to increase as one formed more and more heavenly bodies. The value of difficulty would grow from 100 to 1000, and 1000 to 10,000. Thus, it was widely acknowledged that forming 1,100,000 heavenly bodies was the pinnacle limit for eternal river Tyr elites. It would be impossible to surpass this number. However, this ironclad rule had been shattered now. Tan Mo had created a miracle and surpassed this number by a huge amount, no less. Over 2 million heavenly bodies. What kind of concept was this? No wonder Mo Li and the others hadn't been able to defeat him just then, even after they had teamed up. Mo Li's power had already reached a profound and overwhelming level. Pung! 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 Zhu Ba and the 2 others were no match for him, and they were instantly sent flying after just one strike. The astonishing gulf in power between them couldn't be more evident. Fortunately, all 3 of them were super elites. Although they were sent flying, they hadn't been severely wounded. Ling Han stood face to face with Tan Mo. Last chance, Tan Mo said calmly. Even though he had defeated 3 big shots at the eternal river Tyr with just a single strike, there was no sign of smugness on his face. After all, he viewed this as an extremely normal outcome. Thus, there was naturally no need for him to become smug. Hand the divine fruit and demonic tool over. Ling Han glanced at him before saying, "Don't mess with me if you don't want to die." Tan Mo faltered for a moment before bursting into laughter. "Do you think you're more powerful than me simply because you managed to obtain the divine fruit and I didn't? What an absolute joke. You're only at the medium extreme, while I've already reached the pinnacle level. Moreover, I've formed over 2 million heavenly bodies. This is an overwhelming advantage. You really want to seek death?" Ling Han asked. He also gave his final warning. "Just this question alone is enough reason for me to kill you," Tan Mo said coldly. He raised his hand and slowly pressed it down at Ling Han. He was purposefully moving slowly so that Ling Han could feel the terror of death bearing down upon him. Could Ling Han flee? No, that would be impossible. With Tan Mo's formidable power, how could Ling Han flee from his grasp? Not good. That person is about to get obliterated. The onlookers all whispered among themselves, yet none of them stepped forward to help. This was because they were no match for Tan Mo. Even if they all teamed up to target him, they would still be defeated in one simple strike. The gulf in power between them was far too great. There was no sign of delight on Wu Ju's face either. He had indeed wanted to defeat Ling Han, but definitely not in this kind of manner. However, Ling Han was completely unfazed as he retrieved his divine demon sword. Tan Mo was astonished. This was yet another demonic tool. He knew that Ling Han possessed one demonic tool, but a second one. His eyes were red with greed. The Tan clan didn't possess many demonic tools, and thus even prodigies like him would only have the right to obtain one after becoming a demon master. Resources were scarce, while prodigies were many. Thus, there was no way around this. However, this ant actually possessed two demonic tools. And these were extremely powerful demonic tools, no less. This caused immense jealousy to rise from his heart. What right did Ling Han have to possess these demonic tools? However, this jealousy quickly transformed into a cold sneer on his face. This didn't matter. After all, as long as he killed Ling Han, both of these demonic tools would become his. As it turned out, he still needed to thank this ant. He was actually presenting him with two massive presents. Oh, no, make that 3. His palm involuntarily pressed down quicker. In the presence of two demonic tools, even he couldn't maintain his composure any longer. You asked for this yourself, Ling Han murmured. He started to activate his divine demon sword. Wang. Numerous symbols lit up, causing the celestial tool to release a boundless radiance. What? Tan Mo's expression changed drastically. This was because he could sense the formidable might of a Genesis tier saint. How is this possible? There was an insurmountable gulf between Eternal River tier elites and Genesis tier saints. Even someone as powerful as him whose power could surpass that of numerous demon masters who had just reached the Genesis tier wouldn't be able to defeat Genesis tier saints in a true fight. This was due to the suppression of the Dao of heaven and earth. He would be no match for saints unless he formed more heavenly bodies and experienced a qualitative change. Thus, even he couldn't activate a demonic tool and unleash their full might. So, why had this ant been able to do so? However, there was no time for Tan Mo to wallow in his astonishment. He hurriedly turned around to flee. Battling against a Genesis tier power? He still didn't have the right to do so. Pooh! The onlookers choked in shock upon witnessing this sudden turn of events. The 4 individuals from the Tan clan more so wore expressions of ghastly astonishment. That was Tan Mo, a prodigy who ranked highly even among all of the prodigies of the Forbidden Lands. Yet, he was actually cowering before the might of Ling Han. That's a demon sword, someone exclaimed in a shaky voice. They bit their tongue in shock, but still continued, that's a fully activated demon sword. No wonder Tan Mo had turned around to flee. A fully activated demon sword was equivalent to a demon master. This wasn't something that Tan Mo could oppose. Holy fuck! Ling Han gritted his teeth in exertion. The divine demon sword had drained him of all of his origin power and energy. The veined patterns on the sword were all illuminated, and they were circulating with a powerful aura that felt as if it could suppress past and present. Whoosh! The divine demon sword was astonishingly quick as it automatically sliced through the air and slashed at Tan Mo. Demon masters could cover tens of millions of miles with a single stride, and the divine demon sword was no exception. Thus, how could Tan Mo escape from its attack? Upon seeing the sword slash over, Tan Mo had no option but to turn around and block it with his full strength. If he turned around to block, he would still have a sliver of chance at survival. However, if he continued to flee, his only fate would be death. He roared loudly as the heavenly bodies behind him all unleashed a boundless might. He then launched a punch to meet the attack of the divine demon sword. Wang! The divine demon sword faltered slightly. He's blocked it? The onlookers were absolutely stunned. Was Tan Mo about to defy the heavens? He had actually blocked the attack of a demonic tool. Meanwhile, Tan Mo was both astonished and delighted. In fact, even he could barely believe that he was this powerful. However, his expression changed the very next instant. This was because the divine demon sword had started to move again, inching closer and closer to his throat. The sword was toying around with him. What kind of precious tool was this? Not only had it developed a spirit, but it had developed an extremely despicable spirit. It was actually toying around with its prey. Ling Han was rendered speechless. The divine demon sword had been nurtured and raised by him, so it had definitely taken after his personality. Was he this wicked? There was a slight feeling of guilt in Ling Han's mind. The divine demon sword inched closer and closer as cold sweat started to pour from Tan Mo's forehead. He could clearly feel the sensation of death bearing down upon him. This was a petrifying sensation. This had nothing to do with whether he was a prodigy or not. Everyone was scared of death, even Ling Han. It was just that there were situations where he would rather battle to the death than flee. No! Tan Mo roared. He was a prodigy of the Tan clan, and his future lay in the celestial realm, so how could he die here? Moreover, how could he die at the hands of a mere ant? He unleashed his full strength, and even started to combust his life force. If he didn't make a sacrifice now, there would be no more chances in the future. However, before the fully activated divine demon sword, he didn't stand an iota of chance even though the divine demon sword was only at level 17 right now. Pooh! The divine demon sword slowly stabbed down, unstoppable as it pierced into Tan Mo's chest. Murderous aura surged outward, slowly obliterating his life force. There was bitterness on Tan Mo's face as he looked at the divine demon sword in his chest. He reached over as if to grab something, yet his hands immediately fell to his sides, limp and powerless. Tan Mo, a supreme prodigy, was killed just like that. Chapter 1565 Swallowing an Insul. Everyone was stunned by this sight. In fact, this outcome had already been a foregone conclusion once the divine demon sword had unleashed its full might. However, just how rare were Eternal River tier elites who had formed over 2 million heavenly bodies? Truth be told, they were even harder to find than demon masters. Yet, Tan Mo had been killed not long after his appearance. The onlookers were truly finding it hard to digest this outcome. No, the 4 members of the Tan clan exclaimed in astonishment. Tan Mo had been the most outstanding prodigy among the younger generation of the Tan clan, and the clan had held extremely high hopes for him. Yet, he had actually been killed by a mere ant in this mystery realm. You've brought a huge disaster upon yourself, a member of the Tan clan roared as he pointed at Ling Han. Commit suicide to repent for your crime. Ling Han scratched his head. Although the divine demon sword had drained him of all his stamina, unlike origin power, it would recover extremely quickly. At the very least, he could stand up straight without collapsing to the ground. In any case, was there something wrong with these people's brains? If he had been afraid of the Tan clan, would he have killed Tan Mo in the first place? If you people continue to spew nonsense, I'll make sure to kill you too. There was killing intent in his eyes as he glared at the members of the Tan clan. He wasn't a bloodthirsty person, so he wouldn't kill these 4 people merely because they had provoked him. However, if they continued to push his limits, they would eventually breach his bottom line. The members of the Tan clan immediately shut up upon hearing this. They were far weaker than Tan Mo, so how could they dare to oppose Ling Han? Activate the decree to kill that villainous brat, they whispered among themselves. But the sea is far too turbulent. Without the protection of the decree, we might not make it out of here alive. Then we won't oppose that villainous brat for the time being. In any case, the sixth elder definitely won't forgive him when he learns of this. Moreover, Brother Mo also said so just then. The sixth elder has notified the clan, so they'll definitely send more powerful elders over. At that time. Humph. They chose to swallow this insult and back down for the time being. Zhu Ba and the others were all invigorated with excitement upon seeing this. Tan Mo had suppressed all of them just then, so they had only been able to watch on helplessly as these people acted with haughtiness and arrogance. However, now that Tan Mo had been killed, these four people instantly backed down in cowardice. What a sweet feeling this was. Anyhow, they were also unable to understand how Ling Han had managed to fully activate the demonic tool. However, they didn't mull over this for too long. After all, Ling Han was on their side now. This brought pride to their side, and it was truly a delightful feeling. There was killing intent in Mo Li's eyes as she swept his gaze over the four members of the Tan clan. However, she eventually held himself back from attacking. One needed to remove the roots when cutting weed, but these four people still possessed the protection of a decree. Just then, Tan Mo hadn't had the chance to flee back into the range of the decree. However, these four people certainly wouldn't leave its range now. With the decree of a demon master protecting them, how could Mo Li hope to kill them? However, once a decree was activated, it would only be effective for a limited amount of time. Yet, they all had to stay in this place for 3 years. Mo Li and the others refused to believe that this decree could be effective for this long. Thus, this was merely a matter of killing them sooner or later. As long as these four people were disposed of, they could easily make up an excuse and say that they, along with Tan Mo, had been killed by the sea. After all, wasn't this a common and understandable occurrence? They had charged in without any understanding of the situation, so whom could they blame for their deaths? In fact, Ling Han had also considered killing them to destroy the evidence. However, he wasn't resolute enough to kill people for no good reason. More importantly, would someone with the temper of Tan Feng believe his explanation? He would definitely become wild with rage upon learning of the deaths, and it was very likely that he would indiscriminately capture people to search their souls. Thus, Ling Han still wouldn't be able to hide the truth. That being the case, he might as well be frank and forthright. He would fearlessly admit to being the killer. If he managed to obtain the Chaos Source Rock, he would receive one power boost opportunity after the small tower refined it. At that time, he would possess the ability to kill anyone under the level of Celestial King. That being the case, what trouble could a mere yellow demon bring? Of course, he wouldn't waste this opportunity if he didn't need to. After all, he wanted to save this power boost opportunity for the 8 stones forbidden land. Small tower, can you give me a few more power boost opportunities? Ling Han asked. You can just give me slightly less power each time. For example, I'm happy with power at the Severing Mundane tier. Regardless of whether he was in the Immortal Realm or Netherworld, power at the Severing Mundane tier was already enough to crush all Genesis tier saints. No problem, I can give you 3 opportunities with power at the consummate level of the Genesis tier, Small Tower quickly replied. However, the condition is that you're able to obtain the Chaos Source Rock for me. 3 times? And only at the consummate level of the Genesis tier? Ling Han asked. He started to haggle with the Small Tower, saying, this isn't right. Are you telling me that the power of a Celestial King is only equivalent to that of 3 Genesis tier saints? The power boosts aren't calculated like that, take it or leave it, Small Tower said proudly. Ling Han sighed, and said, fine, I'll take the 3 opportunities. Before entering the Celestial Realm, having the opportunity to wield power at the Genesis tier 3 times was most likely more advantageous than having the opportunity to wield power at the Celestial King tier once. If the need arose, he could simply find more Chaos Source Rocks to feed the vampire like Small Tower. This would give him more power boost opportunities. Sigh, things were much better in the past. I would receive a free power boost opportunity every time I advanced to the next cultivation level. They continued to advance. Moreover, even though Ling Han had obtained a saint fruit, no one suggested that he share it. Of course they didn't. Not only did Ling Han possess demonic tools, but he even possessed the ability to fully activate them. As such, who would dare to provoke him? Ling Han swallowed some alchemical pills as he sat on the flying shuttle. He then retrieved a large number of true origin stones and used them to form a large spiritual chi formation. This would allow him to rapidly replenish his depleted origin power. Everyone on the shuttle gazed at him with respect and fear. Just his ability to activate a demonic tool alone was enough reason for them to kneel in reverence. Chi Huangji shook his head slightly. He had initially thought that he was only slightly weaker than Ling Han. By the looks of things now, the gulf between them had already grown to a boundlessly large extent. This gulf was so large that he could only gaze up at Ling Han. Although he was unwilling to, he still accepted this reality. If he refused to even recognize this difference, then what right would he have to be called a prodigy? The small shuttle continued forward. After several hours, they met with another gigantic wave. However, they faced a huge test time as Ling Han was still recovering from his previous battle. Only Mo Li could deal with this wave. When they eventually passed the wave, the small shuttle beneath them had already been smashed into pieces. It looks like we need to come up with a backup plan, Mo Li said as he retrieved another flying shuttle. They had naturally come to this mystery realm very well prepared. Zi Yuan, Heng Jun, De Cheng, Qing Yu, Han Long, Guang Ming, you guys take another shuttle and return first. You can search for godly medicine in the outer regions of the mystery realm. Understood. The 6 people who were mentioned all nodded in understanding. They were weaker than the others, and even the shuttles wouldn't be able to protect them anymore. Since they needed to rely on their physique to advance now, these people would merely be holding everyone back. Thus, it was better that they retreated now. After all, this sea was vast, and there were godly medicines everywhere. As such, there was no need for them to stubbornly advance. The group of 10 was divided into 2 smaller groups, one which retreated and one which continued to advance. The latter group only consisted of Ling Han, Mo Li, Chi Huangji, and Wu Ju. When the next wave came, Ling Han had already recovered most of his energy. However, even though he and Mo Li worked together, the shuttle that they rode was still instantly smashed into pieces. At the same time, the wave continued to threaten their safety. However, Ling Han was unafraid. His physique was powerful enough to withstand this wave. Meanwhile, Mo Li was also able to withstand the wave. Chi Huangji didn't fare as well as them, and he was left extremely disheveled. However, he was a rank 3 king tier, after all, so he was able to grit his teeth and withstand the wave. As for Wu Ju, he managed to scrape through the wave thanks to a necklace that he was wearing. This was also the reason why only Mo Li and the 3 others continued forward. The others would be unable to withstand the power of these gigantic waves. In fact, their flesh and bones would be brutally crushed if they attempted to face these waves. In any case, it was as if Mo Li had prepared countless shuttles, retrieving a new one each time the previous one was destroyed. This allowed them to spend less origin power as they advanced forward. Although it wasn't much, saving a bit was still better than saving nothing at all. After continuing forward for 3 months like this, a colossal peak that towered into the sky gradually appeared before their eyes. Chapter 1566 Deciphering Formations. This was Ocean Dragon Mountain. Ling Han gazed up, yet he was unable to see the peak of the mountain even with a vision as powerful as his. It was as if that were truly a boundless peak that soared to the pinnacle of the sky. Upon closer inspection, he could see that this mountain bore a surprising resemblance to a raging dragon that was soaring into the sky. The four of them landed at the foot of the mountain. According to Li, they couldn't directly ascend the mountain from the air. This was because the mountain was surrounded by terrifying restrictions that would cause certain death if activated. There were 99 different paths leading to the peak of the mountain, yet each path could only be chosen by one person. Once it was chosen, no one else could walk that path. Of course, this was unless the first person died. This wasn't impossible, since these paths were also littered with restrictions. It was just that there were fewer restrictions on the paths than surrounding the mountain. In any case, it wasn't necessary for them to forcefully ascend the mountain if they couldn't decipher the restrictions. After all, they would be kicked out of this mystery realm once the time limit of 3 years was up. They didn't need to worry about being trapped here forever. Li reiterated that they didn't need to push their limits, and that they should give up if they couldn't advance any further. There was no need for them to risk their lives. Only after reinforcing this point did they each choose a path and begin to ascend the mountain. In fact, there were many rare opportunities while ascending the mountain as well, with treasures such as cultivation techniques, pill recipes, and precious tools appearing from time to time. Although there were relatively few people who could successfully cross the sea, the total number after all these years was definitely still very high. Moreover, each of these people would have attempted to ascend the mountain. Thus, all of the lower-level treasures near the foot of the mountain had already been taken. If they wanted to obtain some treasures, they would need to reach a higher point on the mountain. It was clear that this would become harder and harder by the generation. The four of them split up, and each ascended a path of their own. Ling Han had also chosen a path. In fact, there was no notion of difficulty for these paths, with each being pretty much the same. After climbing for a while, several rocks appeared before Ling Han. Their appearance was extremely sudden, and it was as if someone had purposefully tossed them onto the path as an obstruction. Ling Han stopped to carefully examine these rocks. These were no ordinary rocks, with all of them having formation patterns carved into them. Each rock was linked to another, and they formed a small-scale formation together. Interesting. Ling Han had never seen this kind of formation before, and thus he didn't barge through it with brute force. Instead, he started to deduce a method to decipher this formation. Although this formation is simple, it's able to teach me some foundational concepts. These are things that I overlooked while cultivating in the 8th campus. In the past, I was only focused on studying high-level formations, yet I neglected to learn about these simple yet foundational concepts. The path to becoming a saint is difficult, so if I want to master saint-level formations, I must ensure that my foundations are extremely strong. Ling Han nodded to himself as he continued to climb the mountain. After ascending a mile or so, he saw another formation appear before him. This formation was also very easy to decipher, and he could have actually used brute force to barge through it. However, Ling Han didn't choose to do this. Instead, he only continued to advance after fully comprehending the formation. He continued to do this for all of the formations that he encountered on his ascent. Since most of these formations could be defeated with brute strength, they naturally hadn't managed to trap many of the people who had taken this path before Ling Han. Thus, Ling Han still hadn't obtained a single treasure yet. It was clear that the treasures had already been obtained by those before Ling Han. However, Ling Han wasn't discouraged by this. After all, no one had reached the peak of the mountain before. In fact, no one had ever witnessed the peak of the mountain before either. Thus, as long as he was quick enough, he would eventually reach a height that no one had ever reached before. At that time, any treasure that he encountered would naturally become his. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Time trickled, and Ling Han had already deciphered over 3,000 formations in just a short 10 days. These had all been extremely simple formations. This continued all the way until the 300th day, by which time Ling Han had already deciphered hundreds of thousands of formations. After this, however, the formations that he encountered suddenly became more difficult. He had to pause to think for a moment before he could decipher them. However, this still wasn't enough to stop his advance. Judging from the lack of treasures along the way, Ling Han guessed that these formations hadn't been able to obstruct the large majority of cultivators who had walked this path either. Another 200 days passed, and the difficulty of the formations increased again. By this stage, the formations would already be relatively difficult to overcome with brute strength. Only those who possessed a physique as freakish as Ling Han's or those who possessed the power of big shots had the right to defeat these formations through brute strength. Ling Han started to use the Black Tower. More precisely, he started to use the reincarnation tree that was planted inside the Black Tower. He analyzed the formation patterns under the reincarnation tree, and this allowed him to greatly reduce the time that he spent. His pace was almost unaffected, and he continued to ascend the mountain at an astonishing speed. However, the formations also continued to become more and more difficult. This meant that Ling Han needed to spend longer and longer thinking and analyzing in the Black Tower. Of the 3 years time limit, there was still 1 year remaining. Anyhow, after deciphering a formation, Ling Han coincidentally found a jade plaque on the ground. He picked it up and tossed it into the Black Tower before analyzing it. This wasn't some trap, but rather a recording of a secret technique called Flying Dragon Shadow Hands. This wasn't a high-level technique, but Ling Han instantly knew that it was an extraordinary technique after taking a quick glance. He nodded to himself. Although those who ascended this mountain later would reap fewer treasures, the quality of the treasures that they obtained would definitely be much higher simply because of the height at which they were located as well as the difficulty associated with obtaining them. A good analogy would be the others obtaining 1,000 divine fruits while Ling Han only obtained 1 saint fruit. Even though it was much less in number, it was definitely much higher in value. He smiled happily as he continued forward. The formations became more and more difficult to decipher. If Ling Han deciphered them conventionally, he would need to spend at least a few months on each formation. However, with the help of the reincarnation tree, these formations didn't pose a problem at all. The speed of his advance was astonishing, and he also started to obtain more and more treasures. In fact, he would discover something on the ground each time he deciphered a formation. Most of these discoveries were jade boxes that held alchemical pills or divine fruits, though none of them had reached the saint level. This left Ling Han slightly disappointed. Quickly calculating the time, he realized that they were already very close to reaching the 3-year time limit. There were only 7 months remaining. I wonder if I can reach the peak, Ling Han thought to himself. If I can't reach it, then I won't be able to obtain the Chaos Source Rock. In other words, I won't be able to receive the power boosts from the Black Tower. I'll try my best. Ling Han hadn't had a wink of sleep in these past 2 years. However, as an Eternal River tier elite, he naturally didn't need to sleep anyway. This wouldn't cause any detrimental effects. Decipher, decipher, decipher. 3 months before the time limit, the peak of the mountain finally appeared before Ling Han's eyes. There was a temple there, and on its roof rested the stone statue of a true dragon. Ling Han could already see this quite clearly from where he was. Although that was only the stone statue of a true dragon, it still exerted a powerful pressure on him. It was as if it could come alive at any moment and soar into the skies, causing all the beings of the world to kneel before it. There were still 3 months, and this was probably just enough time. He continued to decipher the formations and advance. At this moment, he realized just how wise his decision not to bulldoze through the low-level formations had been. This was because he needed to use the foundational knowledge that he had mastered thanks to them to decipher these high-level formations. If he had bulldozed his way through, he definitely would have been at a complete loss now. His only option would be to randomly try his luck. Oh. Ah. Ling Han continued to exclaim in astonishment. Foundational knowledge was only foundational knowledge, after all. Now, however, these high-level formations were giving him insights into how he could combine these foundational elements into more complicated structures. All of the complicated matters in the world could be broken down into more foundational elements. Similarly, as long as one had mastered all of the foundational elements, they could use them to construct more high-level and complicated structures. For example, saint-level formations. Chapter 1567 Corpse of a Celestial. Ling Han was struck by a sudden realization. These paths didn't actually exist as a trial for cultivators. Instead, they were here as a means to teach cultivators about formations, from the most foundational stages to more complex stages. The foot of the mountain allowed cultivators to grasp the foundations of formations. Afterward, the formations would slowly increase in difficulty and teach cultivators how to combine these foundational elements into more complicated and high-level structures. Following this increase in complexity, the formations would naturally become more powerful as well. A smile appeared on Ling Han's face. Even if he eventually failed to obtain the Chaos Source Rock, this trip would still be worth it. He had already developed a little understanding of saint-level formations. This isn't the right attitude, you definitely have to find that Chaos Source Rock. Small Tower exclaimed in discontent. I know, I'll definitely try my best, Ling Han replied with a sigh. What a hard tower to satisfy. However, even if there were just a sliver of chance, Ling Han would still try his best. After all, he would be the biggest beneficiary if the Black Tower managed to recover. Moreover, he would also receive 1 or 3 power boost opportunities, depending on the amount of power he desired. There were only a few kilometers remaining until he reached the peak of the mountain. Based on Ling Han's previous experience, there would only be a dozen or so formations left for him to decipher. However, following their explosive increase in difficulty, he would also need more and more time to decipher them. By the time he reached the last 3 formations, there were only 10 days remaining until the time limit of 3 years was reached. This evidently wasn't enough time. Right now, the time he needed to decipher a single formation had already increased to over 10 days. Thus, there was only enough time for him to decipher one of the formations. Ling Han shook his head in resignation. He had already tried his best, and he truly couldn't think of any other way. Don't give up. Small Tower said. As if reaching some resolution, it said, at the risk of wasting some power, I'm willing to provide you with some help. Ling Han's expression involuntarily darkened. This damned Small Tower had been hiding its power from him this entire time. If it weren't for something that affected it, perhaps it would have never revealed its true power to him. I can increase the effects of the reincarnation tree tenfold, but this will cause me to fall into a slumber for the next few days. During this time, you won't be able to enter or exit the Black Tower, Small Tower said solemnly. Ling Han was astonished upon hearing this. By the looks of it, Small Tower wasn't actually hiding its power from him. Rather, the price of it taking action was truly quite large. Ling Han's biggest trump card was the Black Tower. If he wasn't able to use it for a few days, what would he do if he came across a saint or a demon master? He would only be able to withstand a few strikes at most. However, Small Tower had already reached a resolution, so how could he not have? Deal. Ling Han said with a nod. He was also extremely curious about the peak of Ocean Dragon Mountain. After memorizing the formations, he entered the Black Tower and started to analyze them under the reincarnation tree. Right now, both the Empress and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden had given up their positions for him. Thus, the entire power of the reincarnation tree was focused solely on his body. 2 days passed, and Ling Han finished deciphering the first formation. Another 2 days passed, and he finished deciphering the second formation. Then another 3 days passed, and he finally finished deciphering the third and last formation. A total of 7 days had passed. Phew! Ling Han breathed a sigh of relief. An indescribably magnificent temple appeared before him. It towered 3 kilometers into the air, and it more so stretched dozens of kilometers into the distance. This temple was held up by innumerable columns, each of which also reached 3 kilometers in height. Before such colossal columns, Ling Han appeared incredibly tiny and insignificant. "Brat, don't forget the chaos source," small tower said with much exertion. However, it was still unable to complete its sentence before falling into silence. "Small tower! Small tower!" Ling Han shouted. However, he received no reply. In fact, he couldn't even sense the existence of the Black Tower anymore. If he had known this, he would have brought the Empress and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden out first. However, who knew when Small Tower would awake from its slumber? 3 days would pass by in a flash, so how much commotion would he cause if he suddenly returned from this mystery realm with the Empress and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden by his side? The others would all wonder about his spatial god tool. Why had he been able to bring it into the mystery realm? Moreover, he had killed Tan Mo, so Tan Feng would definitely target him once he appeared. If the Empress and the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden were by his side, he would simply be putting them in grave and unnecessary danger. Let it be, then. Ling Han took a deep breath before stepping forward. He had already become accustomed to the Black Tower's existence, and thus he was always unafraid even when faced with severe dangers. This was because he possessed an incredibly powerful trump card. Now, however, he couldn't use this trump card anymore. He could only rely on himself. Fortunately, this Ocean Dragon Mountain didn't look like a deadly place. Quite the contrary, in fact, judging by the educational formations along the way. If he managed to reach the saint-level in formations in the future, this place would definitely be a huge contributing factor. There were no gates to the temple, so Ling Han was able to waltz right in. Upon entering the temple, the first thing he did was naturally search for the Chaos Source Rock. He had promised Small Tower that he would do his best to obtain it. He searched for the Chaos Source Rock everywhere. However, this temple was extremely spacious and also colossal in size. After searching for a moment, Ling Han suddenly stopped in his tracks. 10 corpses had appeared before him. Of these corpses, 8 were men and 2 were women. All of them appeared to be extremely old. They had all battled to death, and Ling Han could clearly see the sword wounds on their bodies. However, even though they had been killed heavens knew how many years ago, Ling Han still didn't have the right to even approach them. There were peculiar projections of the universe and heavenly bodies surrounding these corpses, and these projections took the form of numerous floating bubbles. Looking closely, he could see that each bubble contained a world that was continually transforming and undergoing the cycles of life and death, creation and destruction. Are these genuine worlds, or are they mere illusions? Ling Han's pupils contracted slightly. These 10 people were far more powerful than any being that he had ever seen before. Perhaps he only knew of one person who could rival them. The Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire. Meanwhile, the 3 Phoenix Kings weren't even on the same level as them. These were elites from the celestial realm. It was just that they had been far too powerful when alive, so much so that Ling Han couldn't even fathom their power. Thus, he was unable to determine whether these 10 people had been more powerful when alive, or if the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire had been more powerful. Perhaps these are also victims of the Great Turmoil? What happened in the celestial realm back then? Why were so many elites killed? Anyhow, it made sense that Chaos Source Rocks would appear here now. In fact, it was even possible that this entire mystery realm had fallen down from the celestial realm. These are the corpses of celestials. There's probably still some blood essence and celestial fluid inside their bodies. It's a pity that they're all humans, so I can't bring myself to retrieve them. Moreover, they're far too powerful anyway. Not to mention that I can't use the Black Tower right now. Even if I could, I'd still be seeking death if I attempted to approach them with my divine sense. So be it. I'll look for the Chaos Source Rock first. Ling Han pondered for a moment before deciding to honor his promise with Small Tower first. Young man. An old voice suddenly reverberated throughout the temple. Ling Han's skin instantly crawled with goosebumps, and he more so felt somewhat stifled. The ancient sites that others entered were all ordinary ancient sites. They would clear challenges and obtain treasures, with the process being as normal as could be. However, almost none of the ancient sites that he had entered were ordinary ancient sites. They would always be subject to peculiar events such as what he was experiencing now. However, this was also part of his abilities, no? After all, who else had managed to reach the peak of this mountain and enter this temple before? Since no one had entered this temple before, it was only natural that no one had heard this voice before either. What the hell is this? Are you dead or alive? Ling Han asked. Although this question was strange, its importance was in fact very great. The old voice sounded again, saying, "Rest assured, I've already been dead for heavens know how many years. It's just that I left a wisp of my divine sense inside a Chaos Source Rock before I died, allowing me to exist until now." Chaos Source Rock. Chapter 1568 History of the Cheng clan. So what unfulfilled wish does Senior have? Ling Han asked. It was clear that he had died with frustration and resentment. If he hadn't left a wisp of his divine sense inside a Chaos Source Rock, perhaps he might have even risen up and become a zombie. I have many unfulfilled wishes, the old voice replied. Yes, so hurry up and tell me. I can only stay here for 3 days, and I still need to obtain the Chaos Source Rock. Ling Han said in his mind. However, Ling Han didn't press him to continue. The Hysteria Demon Master and the others had stated that there might exist a black demon-level power inside the Ocean Dragon Mountain. It was evident that their suspicion was intimately linked with this dead yet still existent elite. Thus, it was best not to offend this being. After all, he couldn't use his biggest trump card, the Black Tower, for the time being. Please do tell, Senior. If this junior is able to, I'll definitely help you fulfill your wishes, Ling Han said. Ah. The old voice chuckled before saying, Young man, do you truly possess this conviction? Ling Han nodded, and replied, I never make empty promises. The old voice faltered for a moment before saying, My name is Cheng Fu, and my Cheng clan is from the Celestial Realm. Oh, that's right, you probably don't know about the existence of the Celestial Realm. I'm aware of it, Ling Han hurriedly interjected. He didn't need to hear about the Celestial Realm again. Cheng Fu was slightly astonished. A young brat from the Netherworld actually knew about the existence of the Celestial Realm? However, he quickly regained his composure, and said, Since you know about the Celestial Realm, that makes things a little easier. The Cheng clan also used to be a powerful force of the Celestial Realm. However, a great commotion erupted, and this affected my Cheng clan. We were massacred by a supreme elite, and if it wasn't for the preparations that our ancestors made, and if it wasn't for the formation automatically activating and pushing our ancestral grounds out of the Celestial Realm, perhaps I wouldn't be here speaking to you today. Cheng Fu sighed before continuing, If it's possible, I want you to kill that supreme elite for me. Ling Han's expression involuntarily darkened. Old man, you're truly not holding back. This is someone that even you're referring to as a supreme elite. In other words, they're definitely an elite of the elites in the Celestial Realm. He paused for a moment before saying, Dare I ask, Senior, who is this supreme elite that you speak of? Also, what's their cultivation level? He's the Imperial Void Celestial King, Cheng Fu replied. Pooh! Ling Han instantly choked on his own spit. Celestial King. There were few times when small tower would cower, but even it conceded that it couldn't defeat celestial kings. From this, it could be seen just how powerful celestial kings were. In fact, Ling Han suspected that the Black Tower was a precious treasure of a celestial king who had most likely died during the Great Commotion. The Black Tower had also suffered severe damage, and for some unknown reason, it had managed to enter the lower realm, and had eventually ended up in his possession. Moreover, this celestial king was definitely more powerful than most, since the indestructible heaven scroll required one to comprehend the celestial techniques of numerous celestial kings if they wanted to reach a stage of great accomplishment. In any case, celestial kings were definitely supremely powerful beings. They were the big shots of the celestial realm. Kill a celestial king? Heh. Ling Han chuckled bitterly, and asked, "Does Senior believe that I can achieve this?" "No." Cheng Fu replied firmly and resolutely. "However, if you can find the place where my ancestor is recovering, perhaps you'll have a sliver of chance to succeed." Ling Han was astonished. "Could it be that your ancestor is also a celestial king?" "Naturally," Cheng Fu replied. His voice suddenly became proud and haughty, and he said, "Not only is my ancestor a celestial king, but he's even an elite among the celestial kings. However, my ancestor became involved in some kind of great matter back then, and he ended up being surrounded and attacked by several other celestial kings. In the end, he managed to escape to some unknown place after suffering heavy wounds. As for the Cheng clan, sigh. It was clear that the celestial king of the Cheng clan had fled. However, he could flee, but the Cheng clan couldn't hide. As such, the ancestral grounds of the Cheng clan had been massacred by a celestial king. Although there were preparations made by their ancestor, which sent their ancestral grounds out of the celestial realm, there were still no survivors. Moreover, if a celestial king were regarded as severely wounded, then they had to have suffered some astonishing Dao wound. Add to that the immortals' calamity that they needed to face every 100 million years, and it was imaginable that their wounds would only become increasingly severe. If this were the case, even celestial kings wouldn't be able to escape from death. Now that so many years had passed, it was more likely than not that the celestial king of the Cheng clan had already passed away. Thus, looking for that old celestial king and asking him to exact revenge? This seemed even more implausible than him defeating the celestial king. However, Cheng Fu was brimming with confidence, and he said, "Our ancestor practices a profound cultivation technique, so he's definitely still alive. Young man, when you enter the celestial realm in the future, look for our ancestor according to the method that I'm about to teach you. That way, the Cheng clan will be able to exact revenge. Moreover, if you receive some guidance from our ancestor, it shouldn't be difficult for you to advance to the Immortal Palace tier or Ascending Origin tier." Ling Han wouldn't foolishly believe these spoken promises, and he asked, "Senior, are the Immortal Palace tier and Ascending Origin tier the major tiers after the Severing Mundane tier?" Since you know about the Celestial Realm, why aren't you aware of the cultivation levels in the Celestial Realm? Cheng Fu found this especially strange, but he still replied, "The tier after the Severing Mundane tier is the Dividing Soul tier. After that is the Immortal Palace tier, and then the Ascending Origin tier. Beyond the Ascending Origin tier is the tier that every single celestial dreams of reaching, the Celestial King tier. The Celestial King tier is divided into 9 levels, with each level bringing one closer to ascending the heavens. Our ancestor is a supreme celestial king of the 8th heaven. In other words, he's only one step away from reaching the pinnacle of the Celestial King tier." Only now did Ling Han finally learn of the cultivation levels of the celestial realm, and sure enough, celestial kings were extraordinary beings who stood at the pinnacle of the celestial Dao. However, celestial kings weren't ranked based on the notion of low extreme or high extreme, but rather were ranked according to 9 different levels. Ling Han pondered for a moment before saying, "If an opportunity arises, I'll definitely find your ancestor. In his view, the celestial king of the Cheng clan either was hiding and biding his time because of his severe wounds, or he had already died from his wounds. Otherwise, he would have already learned about the fate of the Cheng clan long ago. If that were the case, would it be necessary for Ling Han to seek him out? "Senior, what on earth happened during the great turmoil?" he asked. It was extremely rare to come across someone who had experienced this event, and he was truly very curious about it. This was an event that had caused numerous celestial kings to die, so it was definitely over a matter that pertained to some very foundational principle. "I don't know either," Cheng Fu replied with a sigh. "I'm only a mere severing mundane tier cultivator, and I was coincidentally near the Chaos Source Rock when the massacre began. It was because of this that I was able to leave a wisp of my divine sense. Among celestial king forces, those at the severing mundane tier were the weakest. Thus, it was only natural that Cheng Fu didn't know about the core secrets behind the great turmoil. However, what Ling Han found strange was the fact that only very few people knew about the reasons behind the great turmoil even though it had engulfed the entire celestial realm. Logically speaking, more people should have known about the reason behind such a massive event. In any case, the Rock Palace was also a powerful force, and that old woman was most likely a celestial king as well. Thus, she would definitely be aware of the intricacies. When he saw Hunyo in the future, he could get her to ask for him. "Young man, I won't make you work for nothing," Cheng Fu said. "Not only will I give you a Chaos Source Rock, but I'll even teach you several formations. If you can comprehend them, you'll possess the ability to defeat many severing mundane tier cultivators in the celestial realm. Follow my guidance, and make sure you don't take a wrong step. This is the ancestral ground of the Cheng clan, and there's a powerful formation protecting it. No one can breach this formation unless they're a celestial king." Ling Han nodded in understanding as he followed the guidance of the voice. At the same time, he looked around to observe his surroundings. This is a place where a celestial king lived before. TSK, I wonder how many treasures remain here. However, it was a shame that Cheng Fu still held on to the hope that their ancestor hadn't died yet. He was hopeful that the Cheng clan could recapture the brilliance of its past. Thus, it was clear that he wouldn't give this ancestral ground to Ling Han. Chapter 1569 Rising Commotion. Ling Han had already reaped fairly rich rewards. When crossing the sea, he had obtained many godly medicines, and had even obtained a saint fruit. When ascending the mountain, he had also obtained many divine pills and secret techniques. As long as he could obtain the Chaos Source Rock now, this trip could be viewed as perfect. Following Cheng Fu's guidance, he continued to weave through the colossal pillars of the temple. Along the way, he witnessed many strange and peculiar scenes. This temple wasn't a simple structure. Instead, it was composed of many small worlds, with each room in the temple potentially being boundless in size. If he took one wrong step, it was possible that he would become lost in a small world. At that time, he would need heavens knew how long to find his way back out. No wonder Cheng Fu dared to claim that no one under the level of Celestial King could breach this formation. However, so what if one was a Celestial King? Take the Celestial King of the Cheng clan, for example. Wasn't he surrounded and attacked, resulting in the destruction of the Cheng clan? Their ancestral ground was massacred, and even though it had managed to flee from the Celestial realm, almost all of the clan members had been killed. After walking for several hours, Ling Han finally arrived before a stone room. He then opened the door using the method that Cheng Fu taught him before stepping in. He immediately arrived above a galaxy, in the center of which there hovered a gigantic rock that was radiating with an indescribable glow. This was the Chaos Source Rock. Ling Han determined this with a single glance. During his time in the lower realm, he had also obtained a Chaos Source Rock once. However, it was Hunyo who had helped him absorb it into the Black Tower. He didn't know whether he could replicate this now. The Chaos Source Rock is a precious treasure, even in the celestial realm, Cheng Fu said with emotion. When charged with source power, it can help raise the level of one's physique. The Cheng clan relied on this Chaos Source Rock to nurture countless prodigies. However, it's a shame that those under the level of Celestial King were nothing but cannon fodder during the Great Turmoil. Young man, my task here is done. Take this Chaos Source Rock and leave. I'll seal this ancestral ground afterward, and only our ancestor will be able to find it. Wang. The Chaos Source Rock started to hover toward Ling Han. Ling Han hurriedly absorbed it into his spatial ring. To his surprise, it actually worked. By the looks of it, he could suppress the ability of the Chaos Source Rock after advancing to the immortal level. He hadn't been able to do this the previous time. That was most likely because he had still been too weak, meaning that he hadn't had the ability to use the Chaos Source Rock. Boom! The world he was in suddenly started to crumble. Before he knew it, Ling Han had already reappeared on a barren and desolate planet. In the distance, there were a dozen or so demon masters standing with their hands clasped behind their backs. The time limit was a mere 3 years, and to demon masters, this was as quick as the blink of an eye. Thus, there had been no need for them to return. They remained here to discuss Dao, and 3 years flew by just like that. Not only Ling Han, but the others had also been kicked out of the mystery realm. From today onward, the Ocean Dragon Mountain would disappear forever. Ling Han couldn't help but sigh with emotion. It seemed like every mystery realm that he entered would reach the end of its lifespan was much like a star of misfortune. Tan Feng's expression involuntarily darkened as he swept his gaze across the cultivators. Where's Tan Mo? Sixth Elder, Brother Mo was killed, the 4 members of the Tan clan hurriedly exclaimed. They finally had someone powerful to rely on now. What? Tan Feng exclaimed in shock. How was this possible? Who killed him? He hurriedly asked. Was it the black demon power in the mystery realm? It was him, the 4 members of the Tan clan replied as they pointed at Ling Han. Shua. Everyone turned around to look at Ling Han, including the 18 demon masters. However, the 18 demon masters all shook their heads, a doubtful expression on their faces. How could this be possible? Tan Mo was at the pinnacle level of the Eternal River tier, and his power was more so at another level compared to Mo Li and the other big shots. Who under the level of Genesis tier could kill him? Ling Han? Even the Hysteria Demon Master who knew about his freakish talent wasn't convinced that he possessed the ability to kill Tan Mo. After all, this was analogous to claiming that a sheep had defeated and killed a lion. It couldn't be possible no matter how he thought about it. It was genuinely him, the 4 members of the Tan clan exclaimed when they saw the cold gaze of Tan Feng sweep over. They hurriedly explained what had happened, also revealing that Ling Han possessed a demonic tool and was surprisingly able to fully activate it. The demon masters were astonished by what they heard. An Eternal River tier elite had managed to fully activate a demonic tool? Preposterous. They started to verify these claims with their disciples and descendants, and after hearing their answers, their expressions of astonishment grew even deeper. This young man was extremely strange. Meanwhile, Tan Feng was seething with killing intent as he locked his gaze onto Ling Han. This person had actually dared to kill a member of the Tan clan, the most prodigious Tan Mo, no less. He was the hope of the Tan clan, and he was a prodigy who they believed could continue to shine even after entering the celestial realm. Die! Tan Feng roared. He didn't hesitate before attacking Ling Han. Taking revenge for Tan Mo was only one part of his motive. Apart from that, he was also attracted by the 2 demonic tools and 1 saint fruit that Ling Han possessed. Thus, he didn't hesitate before attacking. Humph! The Hysteria Demon Master was prepared for this, and he immediately launched his palm in reply. It transformed into a streak of black light as it shot toward Tan Feng. Tan Feng had no option but to turn around and block. He was confident that he was more powerful than the Hysteria Demon Master, but he still wasn't arrogant enough to face his attack without putting up any defenses. Glancing back, he saw that Ling Han had already seized this opportunity to hide behind the Hysteria Demon Master. "Are you seeking death?" he asked balefully. The Hysteria Demon Master was a mere yellow demon, and he was nothing in the eyes of the Tan clan. Several of their elders could suppress him with ease. The Hysteria Demon Master flicked his sleeves, and said, "When one enters a mystery realm, they take responsibility for their own life and death." Moreover, Ling Han killed Tan Mo as the weaker of the two, so one can only say that Tan Mo lost because his skills were inferior. "If you continue to act so shamelessly, don't blame me for looking at you with disdain." If it were possible, he truly didn't want to engage in battle with Tan Feng. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made an exception and allowed the 5 members of the Tan clan to enter. However, he also owed Ling Han, so he definitely wouldn't allow Ling Han to die before he repaid him. At the very least, he wouldn't allow Ling Han to die before his eyes. Tan Feng sneered, and said, "No one has ever dared to kill a disciple of the Tan clan. This can't change now. This brat needs to die. If you insist on protecting him, then you'll also need to die. Everyone around you will need to die." How domineering. The remaining 16 demon masters all wore expressions of fury. Tan Feng was being far too arrogant. He had come uninvited into their territory, and now he was even acting with such wanton disregard. Did he truly think that they were harmless statues? "Heh, let me test your skills then," the Overlord Sword Demon Master said as he stepped forward. There was a flickering battle intent in his eyes. Although he had fought the Hysteria Demon Master for countless years, arguing over the problem of who was more powerful, his relationship with him was actually quite amicable. He had purposefully made a bet with the Hysteria Demon Master, and his aim was actually to become family with him through marriage. Thus, he naturally had to step forward and battle alongside him now. "Who else is there?" Tan Feng asked in scorn. "If you want to die, then hurry up and step forward. I'll remember each of you, lest I kill the wrong person in the future." The demon masters were enraged upon hearing this. Which of them wasn't a ruler of an entire galaxy? They were paramount beings and no one would dare to disobey. They remained silent as they stepped forward, yet their reply was as clear as could be. "Heh, very well. Very well," Tan Feng said as he chuckled. He then suddenly looked up at one corner of the sky. Wang! A golden path materialized in the air, releasing a devastating aura that instantly enveloped the surroundings. Chapter 1570 The Third Elder. A golden path appeared, and it brought along with it a powerful elite. It was a man who looked to be around 50 years old. He had a solid build, and his purple hair billowed in the air even though there was no wind. This person was far too powerful, and the demon masters couldn't help but tremble under the influence of his aura. "Earth Demon," the Overlord Sword Demon Master and the others exclaimed. Earth demons were equivalent to great saints, and they possessed the ability to easily suppress small saints or yellow demons. "Greetings, Senior." The demon masters all greeted the Earth Demon. This was a supreme elite, and he would be invincible among the dozens of nearby galaxies. His power was undoubtedly tremendous and unfathomable. "Our respects to the Third Elder." The 4 disciples of the Tan clan were extremely respectful as they kneeled to greet the Earth Demon. In fact, even Tan Feng bowed slightly in greeting. This was even though he appeared older than this Earth Demon. This supreme elite was called Tan Yun, and he was a paramount elite of the Tan clan. His title, the Third Elder, was proof enough of his power. 2 demon masters in a single clan? The demon masters were astonished. They had heard the disciples of the Tan clan referring to Tan Feng as their sixth elder before, and they had initially thought that this was simply a title based on his age. Judging by the current situation, however, they realized that the Tan clan still had 5 elders ranked above him, none of whom had died. Moreover, the third elder was already an earth demon, so just how powerful were their first elder and second elder? What kind of force was the Tan clan? This was far too terrifying. After greeting the third elder, Tan Feng immediately turned around to sneer at the Hysteria Demon Master, saying, "Didn't you want to protect that brat? Ha ha ha. Come fight us." The Hysteria Demon Master wore a dark expression. His hands were tightly clenched inside his sleeves, and there was even the sound of his fingers cracking. At his cultivation level, it was already extremely rare that one would become enraged. With him being as lofty as a god, who would ever dare to oppose him? However, who could have imagined that an earth demon would suddenly arrive? Before such a paramount being, he was as weak and fragile as a young amateur cultivator. The rank of Demon Master was divided into 4 stages, and the gulf between each stage was profound. Even the so-called star geniuses could only sigh in dejection before the face of such tremendous gulf. Ha ha ha. Tan Feng roared with laughter. It was usually beneath him to act with such haughtiness before juniors, but this time was different. The 17 demon masters had actually dared to oppose him, and this had infuriated him to no end. "Hey! Who do you people think you are? Did these mere ants of the netherworld know where he had come from?" His ancestor had come from the noble celestial realm, so just a finger of his was hundreds of times nobler than the sum of these people combined. Weren't you all acting pretty aggressively just then? Where's your temper now? Tan Feng continued to denigrate them, jabbing his finger at each of the 17 demon masters as he spoke. His voice was dripping with disdain. "Sixth elder." Tan Yun finally spoke. His voice was extremely soft, yet it caused Tan Feng to immediately tremble and shut up. Tan Yun paused for a moment before asking, "Where's the mystery realm?" "This," Tan Feng said as he scratched his head. He didn't know, either. At the time, he had been fully focused on trying to kill Ling Han. As such, he had completely forgotten about the existence of the mystery realm. Upon seeing the look of displeasure on Tan Yun's face, he hurriedly said, "Third elder, this brat killed Tan Mo, and he more so obtained a saint fruit and demonic tools in the mystery realm." "Oh?" Tan Yun glanced at Ling Han, and Ling Han immediately felt as if he had become completely transparent, with no secrets able to be hidden. He's merely at the medium extreme of the eternal river tier, so how could he have killed Mo? He's able to fully activate a demonic tool. Tan Feng added. Tan Yun couldn't help but feel astonished. An eternal river tier elite actually possessed the ability to fully activate a demonic tool? This was incredible. One had to realize that even Tan Mo hadn't possessed such an ability. If one didn't reach the Genesis tier, there was no way they could grasp such high-level regulations of heaven and earth. "Capture him," he commanded. It was naturally beneath him to target an eternal river tier junior himself. Tan Feng turned around, and he glared at Ling Han as he said, "Does anyone still want to obstruct me?" "Father." Zhu Xian frantically shook the Overlord Sword Demon Master's arm. If Ling Han was captured by Tan Feng, his only possible fate would be death. The Overlord Sword Demon Master wore a deep frown, yet he eventually chose to remain silent. An earth demon was present now, so what more could he do? If he stepped forward, he would simply be asking for death. If he were a lone cultivator, perhaps he could still take a gamble. He could grab Ling Han and then flee. After all, the speed of Genesis tier demon masters was around the same. However, there were other things that he needed to consider, so he didn't dare to take this risk. Meanwhile, the Hysteria Demon Master also wore a deep frown. He owed Ling Han a favor, so idly standing by while Ling Han was killed would leave an irremovable thorn in his heart. This would directly affect his Dao heart. "Father, save him," Wu Ju whispered quietly. Although he hated Ling Han, that was merely a case of children being bitter and competitive. In terms of serious matters, he was still very clear on where he stood. At that time, it was indeed Ling Han who had brought him back to the netherworld. He remembered this clearly. Ha ha ha, a bunch of ants actually dared to challenge a dragon. Tan Feng sneered. He reached over and grabbed at Ling Han. He was feeling extremely delighted at this moment. Wang! A burst of sword light flashed over, and a powerful demonic claw streaked through the air. The Overlord Sword Demon Master and Hysteria Demon Master attacked at almost exactly the same time, blocking Tan Feng's attack. "Are you seeking death?" Tan Feng was wild with rage. The third elder had come, yet these people still dared to resist? Elder! The Hysteria Demon Master clasped his hands in respect as he turned to Tan Yun, saying, "Ling Han killed Tan Mo in a fair battle, so don't you think it's unfair to have a Demon Master try to suppress him now?" "Unfair?" Tan Feng roared with laughter. "What's fairness? My Tan clan represents fairness, and my Tan clan represents justice. Third Elder, please kill these two people to protect the name of our Tan clan." His words were far too domineering. Was the Tan clan the ruler of the netherworld? How could they be so wanton and unreasonable? "Elder!" Ling Han suddenly interjected, shouting, "I'm from the 8 Stones Forbidden Land, and we have 10 elders in our clan. I've specifically come to the netherworld to train, and the elders of my clan definitely won't let things slide if you dare to target me here." He was simply making things up, and he was conveniently shifting blame onto the 8 Stones Forbidden Land in the process as well. However, the main reason for doing so was simply to buy time. Once Small Tower awoke, he would be able to use the back tower again. At that time, it wouldn't matter even if a heaven demon or earth demon arrived. He wouldn't be afraid of any of them. In fact, he could even turn the tables and kill them all if he desired to. Tan Feng involuntarily faltered upon hearing this. There was an expression of slight worry in his eyes as he turned back to glance at Tan Yun. Just like the Tan clan, that was also a forbidden land. He wasn't afraid of Ling Han, but he was afraid of the force behind him. If the force behind him happened to be more powerful than the Tan clan, then that would cause them no end of troubles. "I've never heard of them before," Tan Yun eventually said. As he blinked, there was the image of tens of millions of heavenly bodies forming and dying in his eyes. His aura was profound and terrifying. Ling Han grinned, and said, "I'm not a member of the netherworld. In fact, I've come from the immortal realm." Tan Feng shook his head and exclaimed, "Impossible. This person fit perfectly with the regulations of the netherworld, so how could he possibly be from the immortal realm?" One had to realize that he had also attempted to enter the immortal realm before. However, the regulations of heaven and earth that he grasped would be forcefully suppressed and erased. If he stayed in the immortal realm for too long, even his cultivation level would start to fall. Thus, even though it was said that one could open the gates to the celestial realm after reaching the high extreme of the Genesis tier and fusing the regulations of the two realms, this was actually impossible in practice. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.